know, for being one of the biggest realtors in the area, I guess pretty sure it was. Yeah, I don't know if I should see Terry today or not, but if I do, I will, I'll say something to him and ask him to send it to me, because I'm not gonna use, I'm not used to that. So, especially when all my stuff is already set up with having March. No, I assumed that it was, you know, here, we'll do it for this, as long as you tell everybody that they need to go through us, which they can't do, so. Yeah, I can use. So. Who's main meeting? No, because all he's gonna do is transfer over to that first. He's just gonna email me that one lot, and then, Janice is just gonna upload it into the computer and, so upload it into the computer per scale, and then it'll be fine. Yeah, we'll be fine. For what? Well, then let me try to get a hold of Sarah real quick and ask her if we can just send it close. They'll have enough time to record it and then. Already. Why is that even a question? You should know better. What is wrong with you? COVID has affected your brain. No, we use more radio.
Randy,
Hello.
Right?
this is Carl.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Whoops. Carl is our new planner, along with Kylie.
Okay.
Sean.
Well, Abby just walked in, so I can ask her that exact
And
question.
Sean's on vacation.
Lucky him.
Yep.
I'm gonna leave this one for Kylie. Listen.
DJ and I were discussing on the way up. You don't have to email us every time to
Oh,
make sure
okay,
we're coming.
good.
If one of us can't make it, we'll let you know.
Yeah, promise you'll know.
Shelley's you're gonna be so happy that Shelley's back.
What?
Because she won't mispronounce your name.
Oh, yeah.
I
Because
was
at the last
trying to
time-
count how many different ways it could be said.
Because at the last meeting, you looked at me, you're like, when's Shelley coming back? And I was like, tomorrow? It's her first day back from leave. Oh man, do we have a great show for you folks today? Just joking. All right. Just want to get right into it. DJ, have you met Carl?
No, how you doing?
This is Carl
Nice to meet
Brown
you.
Grimm. Carl from New Carlisle is our new planner who took Ryan's spot.
Got it.
And we aren't throwing him to the wolves, he's just going to observe today. But he did ghostwrite a petition, so you'll have his work product in your packets today.
What's up?
There's Kylie. All right, so Beach Road is just tabled from last month. We recommended approval. They're splitting off a farmhouse. I don't know if you recall, but we just didn't have anyone on the
Yeah, there was
Zoom.
Yeah, it was a missing petitioner.
Yep. All right, then we get into Ozone Boulevard, and this one is Kylie's. That's all right. I heard Carl said you were talking with Kylie, or Shelley.
Hey, whatever happened with that guy that wanted to talk?
So hopefully we got the message I was trying to put in. So this is just a pole barn on the south side of South better, south of the bypass. They have 2 lots compared to many of their neighbors, and it's just the height, you know, it's, they're gonna be on the other top of the standards. They are gonna be the only, you know, like the largest pole barn in the area, but since there's 2 lots and it meets all the other developmental standards, it should be okay. I talked with Sky this morning, and we did kind of a preliminary, with that, so the right away. Like he said, he would see no potential issues.
I just asked Kylie to touch base with engineering, because sometimes you guys and even them, they'll get confused and say, well, you granted me approval, why can't I have my second driveway? Because it's a separate thing from engineering. But Sky doesn't foresee any issues.
All right.
Nope, I'm having trouble keeping everyone's names straight, including my own.
There will be gas left there. Obviously, that's the difficulty of the, not being able to store resources. So it's pretty simple.
I don't have any issues with it. My only question was gonna be the height, and you don't know, but Abby knows that the height, there's a lot of things, not a lot, but there's quite a few things in our ordinances that just don't make sense to me as a builder, and this is.
You think we should look at an increased height for accessory structures in, like, after we do the comprehensive plan? Because we're gonna do the zoning ordinance after we do the comprehensive
So,
plan.
can we, yes, I would love to help.
Well, that's why you're on the board, that's why you're participating.
He's got lots of thoughts.
In the plan. Yeah, I mean, this is good that you guys are all involved, and you have opinions. So, do you think that 19 feet is too,
19 feet for the size of vehicles that are coming out, just for the size of the machinery that's people are using now.
and that's less than 1 acre, so they're asking for 24, where 22 is allowed from 1 to 3 acres. So
Right.
still yet, you think,
Yeah, so let me just, for instance, throw this at you, my house that we're
Mhm.
rebuilding, okay?
mhm,
The
in
wall-
Mayflower,
In Mayflower. And by the way, Sean's not allowed to go on vacation again.
we had everything ready for you for Monday morning.
Yeah, but he didn't tell anybody he was going on vacation, and then I call him, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Sean's on vacation.
Sean got it all ready for you,
I'm not
Shelley.
eating.
You better stay on vacation.
Because Shelley's the one that got the brunt of it. She's like, yeah, he's on vacation. I'm like, what? What?
She said that you called, she answered, and then you just hung up.
I dropped my phone.
She was like, you just hung up on me.
I did. I called her right back. I was driving in the car, and for some reason it had picked it up on iPhone instead of over the truck. And so then I went to grab my phone, and I dropped it as I was driving to switch it over. I called her right back. I love Shelley.
I know you do. So Brandy knows that, you know, if we have the same variance being granted, requested and granted every month or every other month,
That
that's
is
a
a sign.
clear sign that we need to revise the ordinance.
So where I was going with this is my house, so one of the reasons why Sean
Mhm.
made me make my lot bigger from 5 acres, exactly 5 acres to 5.2 acres,
So you could go up to that.
is so that I could go up to, I could get my higher.
Unlimited.
And
Yep.
get my unlimited, and because of, and
Yep.
the way that it reads, is it reads 5
In
acres
residential.
and below is this.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got a lot of 5 acre lots out there that are exactly 5 acres. I think one of the things should be 4.99 or 4.98 or whatever it may be, to where,
And it seems like we've had a number of these in the last like 2 years or so that
And-
have been asking for a higher height so they can
Yeah.
have an RV, like specifically.
yeah. So I wholeheartedly, and I've had a complaint with this every time. I think if you're allowed to build a 2-story house, right, and your house can go to 32 feet, whatever it is what I think it is, right? 32 feet.
2.5 stories or 40 feet.
Is it 40 feet? Okay.
I just answered a question about
I
that.
thought it was like,
I was
for some
like,
reason 32 feet
oh my
sounds
gosh,
about
Carl,
right.
you're gonna be coming for my job soon. You're like 20.
I just answered a question.
Did you hear that?
Um,
Whew. All right.
Yeah, so I think 25 is reasonable. 22 is, okay. 25 is going to be more convenient for everybody across the board, and we're gonna get away from this.
I guess my concern is, do you want to allow, I mean, I know we tie it by acreage now, but do we have an issue with allowing these tall accessory structures to be built in areas where we have a smaller primary structure? Like like a one-story. Kylie, what's the one that you just did that was like, yes, yes.
It's like a 940 square foot.
I am all for keeping our accessory structures the way that they are, right, our sizes. Because if somebody wants to put a small house on an acre lot, hey, you have the ability to build a bigger house. It's not my problem that you wanted to build it. And now you want this monstrosity of an outbuilding, right? Sorry. I'm all for that.
You know what I'm saying? Because it dwarfs.
And we
it.
definitely, we made those make sense. We
Yeah.
had been getting a ton of the accessory structure requests, and once you guys revised it, we only got a few of them, and they're like really outsized.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think we're seeing more of like the 2.5 times, right? Isn't that what we're seeing more of, like 2 times what they're allowed, or 2,000.
so I do think the ordinance revision there made sense, and
Yeah.
definitely, we're only seeing the bizarre ones.
So DJ, I'm totally open to that. I mean, and that's what we intend. We need a full makeover of the entire ordinance. We've been doing text amendments here and there, like minor things to just get by, but we need to do a lot of revisions.
Yep. So it's funny that you say that, because this was going to be one of the things that I was gonna ask if we could bring up in our subcommittee. that we
Yes,
have.
absolutely. These are the kinds of things that you need to bring up in our
Get
subcommittee.
excited. Yeah, this is one of the things.
And
that I was gonna
ADUs,
bring
we
up.
gotta talk about accessory dwelling units. We just have to talk in general about where, in your group, you're in Adams, where we're gonna direct residential development and where we're gonna hold tight on our ag zoning and ag regs in favor of letting some areas go. Their development pressure is too great in some areas. We know where they are. Maybe we need to make, I guess, give way in some areas to really hold tight to ag preservation in other areas. It's what we're gonna talk about in housing and farmland preservation. But it's all tied together, you know that. Carl's gonna do utilities. So ultimately, you know what can and can't get built, the density that you can do with and without utilities.
Whatever happened to that crazy lady with that meeting?
Oh, she's not she's fine.
I'm gonna guess, I just, knowing nothing, and just knowing you're talking about zoning and agriculture, you're talking about Deb Durrell.
No, she's fine. And you know what? I
like
Deb-
her.
Deb was, do you guys see Deb and Dan come into my office? Yeah. So Deborah's fine. She's like, Abby, how do I make sure that my voice is heard in this planning process? I said, I'm gonna be real honest with you. The message cannot be no development, because that's not gonna get you anywhere. People are gonna write you off.
Lady with glasses.
Yeah.
She's very soft-spoken.
I said, Deborah, people are gonna write you off as extremist, because we can't say no development.
She
We
hangs
need
out
to
with
have
Dan Carson
development.
a lot.
It has to be good development
She stopped
in the
me
right
after I got
location.
attacked by that lady.
She stopped you?
Yeah, and she's like, TJ, what's going on? And there's one of the people in my head, I'm going, I have no idea who you are.
She pays very close attention to basically everything involved with like local government land management.
She sat through all of our budget hearings.
She
too.
comes to every drainage board meeting just to watch.
So, she was,
But she's probably been to your stuff in Carlisle too, because she's very
Almost certainly.
anti-IDC.
Yeah.
But she has spoken in favor of the solar project. So,
She has interesting views, but she's a very nice lady.
she's probably she does have civil discourse, like she can be respectful in her comments. where they're not always that.
I didn't mean to sidetrack us, but
No, no.
Anyways, no, it was
That lady
fine, I know.
It was fine, she said, do you own a business because you went to college, your wife, was it your family?
I know.
Or something else?
I-
And I'm like, whoa, hold up here, pump the brakes.
Brandy, a lot of her concerns and her grievances were best handled by the South Bend Human Rights Commission, which is who I referred her to.
okay.
Yeah, and then she goes, I'm gonna call the mayor, I'm gonna get you off. I go, call the mayor, you got nothing to do with this, I don't really care who you call.
She was like, where's Henry Davis Jr.? Is he divorced? Is he married? And I was like, he's not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, yeah, I would 100% like to,
Yes, we need to talk about accessory dwelling units, we need to talk about accessory structures. We need to talk about what areas are primed for residential development and how we make those areas with development pressure better.
I got other spots that we should spend money to, primarily health department for people.
Okay, gosh, you should be on utilities too. Will you be on utilities?
I will be on anything that I'm asked to be on that will take my personality.
I'm not worried about you at all. I'm not. I am worried about it being an election year and having,
What was with
Stuff.
Derek's comment when he opened up that meeting?
oh, you mean the redistricting comment?
Yeah.
He
And then
puts that
goes,
into
And
everything.
then he goes, I'm your county commissioner for now.
He says that every time.
When he walked
Every
over,
time.
when he walked over to me and him and I started talking, I go, hey, real subtle. I go, what was the point? And he's like, hey, I gotta get my jabs in whenever you can. And I'm like, "God,
Okay,
dude,
well,
come on."
DJ, Andy's resigned.
I know.
And do you want me to put Deb up in front of 150?
No.
So that, and council had budget hearings that night, so I couldn't get anyone from council. Who,
So I
could
called
tell me who
Derek-
my
I called
options
Derek
were
the
for
other day
elected
to get-
officials?
To get my
He,
subdivision
Derek
through.
wore a t-shirt, at least, with sleeves,
Did he?
not a cutoff and
Oh.
sweatpants. What do you want
That's
from
true,
me?
that's true. But I called Deb the other day
Just-
to help with because I called Derek, I called Andy, I called everybody to get this subdivision pushed through because Barney and Brett were not doing what they were asked to do.
Mhm.
And
Morgan,
what's up?
oh, okay.
And, I have talked to Deb 10,000 times. I've known Deb since I was 3 years old.
She has no idea who you are.
And I go, Deb, it's DJ. She's like, oh, hi, DJ. And I go, do you tab in here? And she's like, yeah. And I said, I got a question, I got a problem, I need your help. And she's like, okay. She goes, who is this again? I'm like, for the love of God, Deb. We literally just talked yesterday at one of the meetings. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, what can I help you with? And I said, I got an issue with my subdivision. Just talked to Derek. I need to get a commission together because we're gonna take this roundtable event and I'm gonna invite Brett and Mark to it. And I said, we're gonna handle some issues that we're having in the county. And she's like, what is this for again? I go, you know what, Deb, never mind.
I
said,
know,
"I'll talk
I
to you
know,
later. Thanks."
I know. But she won her election fair and square. She's here for another 2 years.
Golly. All right,
And Derek, who,
I'll stop.
yes, that's why we had Derek up at the summit. Andy, not Deb, council on budget.
I think we're on property number 3.
Thanks, Brandy.
I thought we did.
We did not do 3, we got sidetracked.
Oh, all
All right.
right, hang on, let me get it back on.
Railroad, so, and usually the properties split among have significant,
Okay.
they want to build a culvert at the southwest corner of the property, so
Yeah.
they need variances on the sides and, because of that. So we're recommending approval, it's a, agricultural area, hold on, we have to, there's other accessory structures in the area. If it was all zone, single residential, they would put the setbacks in here. And they are limiting where else they would put the hold on, because obviously they can put it here, something here, and anywhere else is gonna be in the agricultural. So this makes the most sense to put it here. This was also
Kind of a weirdly shaped property.
yes. And we think the rear setback will be okay, this is a small
See, again, this is one of those things to me that just doesn't make sense. But I kind of feel like this is one of those.
This is what we're here for.
This is what we're here for. Oh, that's the one you ghost wrote.
Yeah, give me a softball to start with.
We don't give the new people the messy petitions. That's why Kylie has McKinley again, or for the first time.
We'll get to McKinley.
All right.
Oh, thanks.
This is another one.
Yep, another riverfront properties. It's like every month
Yeah.
I'm this job.
I think it's just one of those.
We didn't have
that-
any until you got here.
I don't know, they brought them to
I
me.
think now I think there was probably gonna be this stretch of where neighbors were trying to figure out if this one was gonna get handled, then this one got handled.
Yeah, I
then
think
this
so
one got
too.
handled, And now everybody's like, all right, they're just doing it, let's get it done before.
Or they see their neighbor doing additions, or like, and then they.
Didn't know we could do that.
They wrote in the application that they were looking for a riverfront home in that Osceola, Mishawaka area for years, and this one finally went for sale. And even though it's too small for them, they just said, we don't care, we want a riverfront property, we're gonna buy it, and now they need to expand and it's. Let's see, I should. This one's also a really small lot, and it's also, on kind of the corner of East Street and Missoula, just right before Missoula comes off and starts heading towards Ashland. So that also is. As we said, almost every home on Missoula is, the condition of the property, similar to the plans for this one. It will be out there for a lot of and so it's setbacks.
That's much better, thank you.
Issues there. You're welcome. And again, lots of different things to do, so the lot, the around corner lot. It's not a lot, so.
You're right, we got some goofy looking ones.
Moving on, Riley Road. All right, this was Sean's case that I am presenting for him since he's on vacation. They're looking to split off 2.19 acres of a 57-acre parcel. And Sean is recommending approval on the condition that the balance of the acreage be put in an outlot, because otherwise we would create, with the adjacent parcels totaling 75 acres total, the possibility to create an additional buildable lot in the ag district. So 3 total, and then with the granting of this variance would create potential for 4, where 3 would be allowed previously. What might come up is that when we require them to plat an outlot, they then have to go out and survey and plat the entire acreage. So that might be a pushback. Randy, if that came up, do we have any recourse? Would we be able to make it a condition
Yeah, I don't see
or
any reason why
commitment
you
of
couldn't.
approval?
Yeah,
Not that it is an outlot, but that, I guess, commitment.
yeah, it would be a condition that the,
No, I mean, if they said, well, we don't want to survey it and go through a subdivision, could we write a commitment such that no development is allowed on this property? Yeah, I know.
I would not recommend, I would say that if they are that concerned about it, then they should just make it a commitment and make it a condition that it be an outlot and let the developer decide what they want to do.
Are you understanding? They might scream and cry and say that it's gonna cost too much to survey and subdivide it. Because then they'll have to plat this entire, if we required them to make it an outlot versus just surveying this and going through this subdivision, they'll have to include all of it. That's what we've recommended. Thanks, Shelley.
So, if they come back, you're saying, so if we make it a condition, we approve it on the condition that they
have to,
survey.
That the remaining portion of the parcel be made an outlot.
Right, and they come back and say no,
Then
because,
they just don't get the variance.
then I assume that everybody would just say no. But I assume.
alright. So we're recommending that it be platted as an
Yeah, I
outlot,
mean,
because,
they approve it as an outlot, right? Survey it and then plat it as an outlot. And then they decide that they're not gonna do it. And then I'll get the
That would be up to them.
variance.
Yep.
And that's their choice.
yep. Alright. McKinley Highway.
I can't
You're gonna
say,
remember
I can't
this
say
one,
really anything
right?
on this one because we represent these people.
I was gonna say, do you have to recuse yourself?
I don't vote, so I don't have to recuse myself, but I'm not going to be able to provide much.
Are you representing the buyer or the seller?
This is our client.
The seller, the
Yes.
current owner?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So they're seeking to legalize.
I
this-
can provide you advice that I shouldn't have an issue there, but in terms of like, I probably know things about this that I can't tell you. So.
Alright. DJ, they are seeking to legalize the current conditions of the property, which don't meet the current zoning ordinance requirements. Correct, Brandy?
Yeah, because wasn't originally one of the leaseholder of the property line, I think.
Alright, so this property was subject to a revised final site plan. It was rezoned in June, is it June or January? June of, well, it got variances in June of last year. It was rezoned in, I think, January.
Sorry, yes, January was the rezoning, was the release.
So they wanted to do some additional improvements, DJ. It was subject to a final site plan. They rezoned to remove the final site plan, and then that was in January. That went to APC. And then they came to you all in June of 2021 for variances for the proposed building, for a couple proposed buildings. One was a 35-foot setback where 40 is required for the property, the northernmost property along McKinley. And the other one was a side setback of, I think they applied for 8, and then we granted 14.
Yeah, because that's why this building is set back differently than, that's why this one's set back farther than this one, if I remember correctly.
You had originally recommended 8, they said we could do.
Oh, okay, we recommended 8.
It came under a hearing, they said, you know what, you can do 14, if that's better.
They applied for 4. I don't remember, but I have the after meeting letter, and what was ultimately granted was 14, because that was agreed on by the petitioner. So then the as-built survey comes out after the fact, and the building to the north was actually constructed at 29 feet. You guys didn't see this, because they, rather than coming back to you, which I discouraged, cut off a section of the building at the front. They had to cut it off to 35 feet to meet what was granted by you, but they didn't. They only cut it to 34.4. So that's where the first variance is, legalizing that 34.4 foot setback.
And you're suggesting your approval on this?
Kylie's like, whatever. No.
Yeah.
I'm recommending
Good.
approval for some and denial for others.
Well, we need to go through this.
Yep, we do. So we got the front setback of 34 feet where 35 was approved.
So there's 5 variances in this?
There's front, side,
Looks like 6.
rear,
There's 6 listed.
Oh, there is
landscaping.
6, I'm sorry.
Kylie, do you want it to go or you want me to?
Doesn't matter. For the first one, really, it really, was just all about the criteria for all of these. So which of the variances apply for could meet the criteria, and that's how I said some should be for some should be denied. The first one, I feel like there is practical difficulty because the lot is at an angle, and they did not realize that. And so when they built the building, it is slightly
first one is that they're willing to go front yard setback 34 is to 4. From 40 feet to 34.
35 feet was approved, at the ABZ, and 40 is what would be required. So we could, but they were supposed to meet 35, and because the lot is angled, they didn't realize when they measured it for their house, that it was 30.
Okay.
So the next one, the west setback, I'm pretty against that one, because it's frustrating that we said in the minute, like I read the minutes, we said, hey, can you do 8? They said, no, we can do 14. And then they come back and they couldn't even do 8.
But I think, again, they're trying to legalize what was there previously.
Yes, but I'm not sure why they said that then originally. But also the biggest issue with this one is the neighbors were the most angry about this one. So I don't want to recommend one for this one, so there's no practical difficulty.
Isn't this where they agreed to 14 foot?
Well, if you look at the or not the as-built, but the survey that was submitted with the petition, they're showing setbacks along the western property line of 4.5 and 5.5, so they applied for 4. So I believe legalize all the structures on the western property line.
Otherwise they gotta tear them down, or all of them.
Right, because I have a revised final site plan that was approved in 2015 that showed them all at 10 feet. We used to approve things via via site plan or revised final site plan. Brandy, in talking with Larry, Angela, and past staff, I always suspected that sometimes we approved things via revised final site plan that didn't necessarily get variances. But that's never been fully articulated to me. Regardless, what was approved in 2015 showed them at 10 feet.
Okay.
You hear what I'm saying? So it never was approved to be the 4 feet.
Yeah. I
It was
follow.
shown as 10 in the revised final site plan.
I follow.
Okay.
Assuming it's better to ask for forgiveness.
Yep. Rear setback. Always shown on the site plans on file as 20 feet, 20-foot building setback on this revised final site plan from 2015, which is what the ordinance requires. Survey shows 16.9.
So I'm against this one as well. Rear setbacks should be always 20 larger than the side setback. And the abutting property is residential in someone's backyard, and there's currently no landscapes. So I'm against that. I also see that because I also see that.
So what about 3? We skip over 3.
The east side setback, of 11 feet, that one, I said,
We're gonna have to stop talking about this in here. We have enough members.
Okay. So, Kylie's recommending against the landscape. I believe they applied for the landscaping in an effort to just fully legalize the site.
That's the last one.
They're looking to sell, and in order for the sale, it's my understanding, in order for the sale to go through, they're trying to legalize all of the nonconformities.
I've had to get somebody get it for 40. Well, yours are bad. I didn't need, yeah. And I'm going inside to see about that QC genetics. And the only reason I'm doing that is to take it out. And prevent certain
Randy, do you know who's gonna be here for this one?
I'm assuming Terry Lang. Lang Feeney signed it. Or Lang Feeney's the contact person on here. They live in Florida, so I don't think it's going to be them.
I was just curious, because they've had Progressive, they've had Marbach. Now they have Queen Baby. They haven't used the same surveyor throughout.
One might think that there were things that the first surveyor didn't do right.
Carl, did you bring your pictometry picture? All right. This is zoned residential.
Goodness. I haven't seen one that bad in a
What's
while.
going on here?
I went on a site visit yesterday, and I wasn't able to get pictures. My question is, without site visit pictures, can I issue a citation based on that?
I would say based on this you can.
What if it's from 2020 and he didn't take the aerial?
That one from 2022.
Oh,
I got a
okay.
side one from April.
I would say we go ahead with this and only worry about that if they appeal it.
Also, both of those properties got a
So sorry.
complaint. Can I do it for the one like?
Let me see if Shelly printed you off one, all right? And then I'll run it with you.
Because when I went there, the reason I didn't get
Sorry.
pictures where there were people physically like working on cars, like a junkyard. And I it's kind of gross to like get out of the car. So I know that I'm not going to talk about it.
It sounds like the other one is operating as automobile wrecking
Yeah,
yard.
they are. But
I mean, you have gone there and like watched them do it, so I feel like that's good enough.
oh, it is.
I mean, if it came to I had to sue them, I would want you in court to tell me
Right.
that you saw them doing it.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I'm comfortable with that. And if at some point you can get out and take pictures, it would be good to do that
Yeah, I would like to do that.
as a follow-up, but I think you've got enough to start it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Do you want to switch? So I can...
It doesn't matter. The microphone's already here, so I'll just stay here. Because then, if you have to pull it far, I'm always worried about tripping.
Like...
Because, like, sometimes I have to get up and walk around and hand stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
My worst fear is, like, tripping over
Tripping on
that
the-
and
the-
falling. That would be terrible. Okay.
That would be...
No. That would be very embarrassing. Test. Okay. Sometimes the microphone down here doesn't work, so watch
Oh.
out. That happened to me one time.
Good idea to test it.
Abby rewrote my script. Now I have to figure out what I'm saying.
While you guys were going over that, I just had intense relief that I was doing it.
No, it's not bad. Oh, do you mean about McKinley specifically? Oh, I know. I just like, I'm just emotionally and mentally prepared that I'm gonna go through it and everyone is gonna be like, what? And I'm gonna have to go over it again.
Actually, it made a lot of
because
sense.
it's really confusing.
What you're recommending makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So,
It'll be good.
just a lot of details to go over.
Okay. Okay, it's commercially zoned, so when you put something up, it's kind of amazing. I read all kinds of things.
Jay, I returned your call yesterday. Okay, sounds good. I just want to make
She must have.
I forgot to print it, sorry. I know, I'm rusty. Been off the loop a little bit.
No. No.
Yeah, sure, driveway,
Sorry?
sure.
Oh, okay. No, I knew DJ and I was like going by process of elimination who was that. Everyone's here. Great.
Gasoline. Sure, that's right.
So I was thinking, since you have heard us talk about it, you could just present McKinley.
That is good.
That's good.
I knew where that was going, and I was like, oh, it's just joking.
Oh, good. They're trying to legalize. They might not be able to find it, and it would have to potentially exist under just as non-conforming. So, I mean, if it's fire or spray or it's like the insurance would cover it as doesn't Jim, did you bike? Wow. Nice day. You know Jim? Yeah. I'm impressed that you bike still. Pardon? Yeah, see? That there's a big one.
I've always wondered what you would do.
That's Jim.
I want to do it.
I had a professor in law school who decided he was going to bike everywhere, and it apparently extended into winter until the day that he gave himself hypothermia on the way to class, and we spent that class period like not really doing anything, like he was there, but he kept losing his train of thought, and we ended up just like sitting there doing a reading, and he went got a blanket.
Oh my goodness.
He decided he wasn't going to bicycle when it was that cold again.
Yeah, sometimes like the colder climates are like very bicycle friendly. Like Minneapolis is one of the communities in the States that has like the most bike lanes and stuff.
Well, I don't know that I would call Indianapolis particularly bike friendly.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, I know. I was just saying. I'm
Minneapolis. Not Minneapolis. Minneapolis. St. Paul.
We were in Indy.
She's doing beach.
Oh, I thought you went to Notre Dame.
I did go to Notre Dame for my undergrad.
Oh, and then you went to,
I went to IUPUI for my law school.
They should be here.
They gave me the most money.
Oh, did they? They just
I followed a very similar trajectory in going to Ball State for my planning master's because I got a GA and it covered everything.
Yeah, law school is one of those things where there is no need-based aid. It is entirely based on your LSAT score, pretty much.
I don't know.
So if you go to a school that's less highly ranked and get a really good LSAT score, you get more money. I applied for Notre Dame law school, but they waitlisted me. I heard. So,
All right. We are ready to go. Hi, can I
Best day of my life was buying this boat. Second best day of my life was selling it. 35-foot cabin cruiser, I loved it.
Great, okay, yeah.
Yes.
It's too big.
Once in a while, I'll load my bike on
So
the
then
car.
I had to
like
go up
say,
there and I had to go
take my
out.
bike for a
I
ride.
had
on
to
the
do
car.
this, I had to do that. I didn't want to do it anymore. So,
Ways to go.
Mostly I just go from home. I watch the wind. I'll ride it.
Because they always complain about how it's hot. I'm like, trade me. I would rather be.
I think we should just switch it.
Because then, like, we should. Because I hate having to, like, bundle up in the sunshine to come to the office. I would rather.
Sweater.
Yeah, like, I want to wear my formal tank tops that I bought.
I'm Carl. Nice to meet you.
Outside
Carl
of
from
it,
New
and
Carlisle.
BJ?
that's real money.
Hi, Abby.
Recording in progress.
Road 7.
What'd you have in it?
They had
No.
a campground and everything.
Where's my sheet? Here it is, right here. All right, everybody, the time is 1:30, and I hereby call the August 10th, 2022 Area Board of Zoning and Appeals to order. We have 7 members present today on a 7-member board. This meeting is held in person and virtually on the 4th floor of the council chambers of the County City Building with a Zoom video and phone teleconferencing option available. It's posted on the website sjcindiana.com/agenda center. Regarding public comment, we will first ask for any public comment from those sitting in the chambers, then call on the members of the public to attend remotely. If a member of the public attends remotely, wishes to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting, they should indicate this by using the raise hand function in Zoom and/or by the messaging the host in the chat function. Please clearly state your name and address for the record. We ask the board members to state their name when making a motion and a second. Lastly, please silence your cell phones so they do not disturb the meeting. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Hawley?
Present.
Mr. Moffett?
Here.
Mr. Ritzma?
Here.
Mr. Roush?
Here.
Mr. Schaefer?
Here.
Mr. Vellman?
Here.
Mr. Tavernier?
Here. Okay, we have petition number 1, please.
Location 68936 Beach Road, an unaddressed 2± acre parcel at the northeast corner of Shively Road and Beach Road, as tabled. Owner Lehman Farms LP, requested actions. Variance number 1, section 154.092 sub D, to allow a front yard setback of 0 foot where a minimum of 35 feet is required for an existing house constructed 35 feet from the center line of the road, and variance number 2 from section 154.092 sub A to allow a lot area of 1 acre where a minimum of 20 acres is required. Zoning A agricultural district, county.
Shelley, could you please click onto the screen? All right, this property was tabled from last month because we didn't have a representative on Zoom or present on behalf of the petitioner. This petition is to allow an existing single-family dwelling to be separated from 39 acres of cultivated farmland. It will not create an additional buildable lot in the agricultural district than what would be permitted by right. This is the property proposed to be split off and the existing home. And the site plan showing the proposed lot, which is requested to be split off from the 39 acres of tilled farmland. In looking at the Indiana Code criteria for the granting of a developmental variance, the approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or welfare. The front setback is for an existing house that is non-conforming and is only required because additional right-of-way must be dedicated as a result of the subdivision, and the lot area variance would not allow the possibility for an additional residential lot in the agricultural district. The use and value of the area would not be affected in a substantially adverse manner, as the properties will continue to be used in the same manner. And strict application to the terms of the chapter would result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property, because it would prohibit the subdivision from occurring. And as I mentioned previously, the subdivision as proposed does not create an additional buildable lot beyond what would be allowed in the agricultural district. Staff recommends approval of both variances.
Okay, you guys got any questions?
I'm just, the proposal says 2 plus or minus acre parcel, which I get that it's not exact, but on the sheet here that shows the actual lot, it shows 1.13 acres. Is that because they're not certain where the lines will ultimately end up, or where they're going to get it all staked off, or why I know 2 plus or minus is not exact, but they put 1.13 on this sheet, so.
I would ask the petitioner to answer that, but that could be a result of the additional right-of-way that's being dedicated.
Okay, you guys got any more questions?
Abby, if I may, you talk about the sentence that said it won't create the possibility of an additional buildable lot in the agricultural beyond what would be permitted by right. There's plenty of road frontage, and it's over 20 acres, so it would be a buildable lot, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're starting with 40 acres, then you have 2 buildable lots. If you take 1 or 2 acres out of it, then you're left with 38 or 39 acres.
But to clarify, it's not going to be an outlot.
Correct.
So someone could build on the 39 acres.
Correct.
Okay.
You're going to see a petition later on where we have recommended that we create an outlot, because we're looking at how many lots can you eke out of the acreage that's left. So with this particular property at 40 acres, they have 2 buildable lots, 20 acres. Whereas when they take out 1 to 2 acres, they're splitting off the house, and then they have, let's say, 38 acres remaining. 38 acres doesn't get you to 2 buildable lots. 38 acres gets you to 1 buildable lot.
Right.
So they're not creating additional buildable lots. Now, if we had, say, a 45-acre parcel, and we give a variance for lot area for 2 acres, and then we're left with a 43-acre parcel, well, then we have created the possibility for an additional lot.
But you could take the 38 acres, put another house on it, divide off 10, and then you'd have another buildable lot.
You wouldn't be able to divide off 10 unless it meets the zoning ordinance requirements for the agricultural exception. It is 20 acres.
Oh, okay, so you couldn't make a mini out of that house that you just built?
Not without coming to you, gentlemen, for approval.
Right. We could see it again.
We could see it again.
I just wanted that clarification, that's cool.
Stop
Yep.
giving people ideas. All right, you guys done? Good?
We're done.
Okay. You got any more questions?
No, I do not.
All right. Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Kyle Lehman, 68026 Beach Road, Napanee, Indiana, 46550.
Do you want to talk about the petition at all?
I'm buying the house from my grandparents who are now deceased. It's within a trust, so I'll be buying it from my dad and his brother and sister. Been in the family for 60 or so years, so, yeah.
Okay.
Just requesting for those variances to be approved, and we can move forward then.
All right.
Onto the planning committee, right? Would that be the next step after this?
Yeah, it will need to go through the plat committee for approval.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, to answer the gentleman's question, we had put ±2 before the surveyor came in there. When they staked everything off and got the actual lot, that's where the 1.13 comes into.
Yeah, because lot 1 is 1.13, but it's a 1.56 acre tract of land, which I would include would be the right-of-way, so it's close.
Okay,
Perfect, thank you.
yep.
Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you. Do I need to stick around for anything after this, or I'll be getting a notification for the plat committee, or when that
So
happens?
I'd stick
next
around
month?
until the end of your variance hearing, and then you can take off
Okay.
as soon as we're done with
Never been
that.
through it before, so just making sure.
Okay. All right, I will now open it up to the public. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. None? Any on Zoom? See none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? See none. The public portion is now closed. Anybody got any last questions? Or I'll take a motion.
Abby, would you know, I guess I should ask him this question. The remaining land there, is that all tillable and in crops?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Abby.
If you have
Yeah.
questions for the petitioner can please approach the podium to answer on the recording.
Thank you.
You good? Okay. All right.
Donnie Ritzma, I'll make a motion to approve the variances as requested.
I'll second that. Bob Hawley?
Okay, motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Veldman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, after careful consideration, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals grants your variances and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you.
And you may leave.
Petition number 2.
Location 20363 Ozone Boulevard. Owner Mark and Lindy Roberts. Requested action, variance number 1 from section 154.070, sub C 1A1, to allow a height of 24 feet where a maximum height of 22 feet is allowed for a new pole barn. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
Shelley, could you click onto the PowerPoint? Thank you. Hi, this is Kylie Abrams, Area Plan Commission staff. Staff recommends approval of the variances, or the variance. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 40-foot by 64-foot accessory pole barn on their 1.77-acre property to store a Class A motorhome and other personal property. As you can see, the property is located at the end of a street that dead ends at the US 31 bypass, and the property is largely surrounded by forest. This is the front of the home. This is where the proposed pole barn would be located, just south of that shed, as you can see. Looking east, west. These are the provided site plans from the petitioner. The proposed pole barn will meet all other development standards aside from the maximum height. It will have a driveway installed leading to it and will have gas and electricity run to the pole barn. Here are provided rough elevations for the building, looking south, north, and west, showing the garage doors and side door. On to the criteria. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval will not be injurious. General welfare can only be improved by the additional storage that the petitioner intends to keep public property safely and privately stored in and out of the petitioner's open yard. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The area adjacent to the property will likely not be affected. Although this is the largest accessory structure in the immediate area, the petitioner's larger lot size compared to the other lots in the neighborhood and the fact that it will meet all other development standards for the district should result in little impact on the neighborhood. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Strict application of the terms of this chapter would prevent the petitioner from safely storing their Class A motorhome out of lines of sight for the neighborhood, and it would prevent future violation of the zoning ordinance. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Anybody got questions?
When are we going to start looking at this? This is, multiple times we've had this issue, and it appears a standard building practice is a 412 roof, and to maintain a 16-foot clearance, it's going to require something larger than 22 foot for height.
That's a great question, and something that your chair brought to our attention in regards not to this specific petition, but the general ordinance needing to be updated prior to the meeting.
I mean, could it be that it's a sliding scale over a certain square footage? It could be 22, if it's a bigger square footage, if it's allowed, it could be 24, 26. Could you have something like that, so it's easier to utilize?
That's something we can look into, and I'd look to you all for input.
He's the builder.
Yes.
That's a comment I had on this.
Good. All right, nobody else? Petitioner present? Name and address, please, and you got 10 minutes.
Mark Roberts, 20363 Ozone Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46614. I have nothing to say, just other than we'd like to build the building there and add it to the neighborhood. Any questions that you have?
How long have you owned the property?
We purchased it, I believe, back in April of this year. And we bought it specifically because of the acreage that was there and also the location that we did want to store our motorhome close to our house so that we had space for it. And that is one of the leading reasons that we bought that property.
Do you already own, or are you done, Bob? Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you already own the motorhome? Or
Yes,
just
we do. We previously lived on the north side of Elkhart, Indiana, and the RV is stored on the east side of Elkhart, Indiana, almost to County Road 17. So it's about 35, 40 minutes away with restricted times that I can get in to get to it, get it out, get it back in. So that's why we'd like it there at the house.
And so you're going to have gas and electric to it, I assume, to keep it temperature controlled and...
Yes.
Okay, but no sewer, no...
We don't plan on that.
Okay. I agree with you, Joe. Anybody else got anything?
You plan on starting that as soon as possible?
The driveway would probably be within a couple of weeks, and then the builder, I believe he's out till September, October.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Now we can open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Darla Teese. I also live on Ozone Street, which is actually has a turn in it, so I live on the part of it that runs north to south. He lives on the portion that runs east to west. They have a nice big lot. They have a very nice home, and they take care of their things very nicely in the neighborhood. It's a small neighborhood with only about 33 houses, and we're kind of a suburb of the city, south of the Church of God, off of highway, I don't know the highway name. But I saw the picture that you had there, and it had 2 garage doors in it, one big one and one small one, and I wasn't sure. I thought it was just for, yes, there, like a big door and a smaller door. And I'm thinking, will you be tearing down your little shed that you have off to the side?
So, hold on a second, sir.
Come,
All right.
come.
No, ma'am.
Oh, sorry.
So are you speaking in favor or against this petition?
I'm just curious as to what it is. My concern is not his structure. My concern is I have another neighbor who was at one time prevented from building a large structure. He is my next door neighbor, so to speak, with some vacant lots in between. But he has been prevented in the past from building a very large structure, and I am thankful for that particular thing. I am not against this property being built. I'm just concerned that if this is okay, then he's going to try and reestablish his thing, and he deals in cars and trucks and fills up the neighborhood, his yard, with vehicles. His wife keeps him from being too much, but I'm worried when this one gets passed that he won't get a variance, and
All right, so what this portion of this is right now is to speak for or against.
And it does include asking questions.
Right, and so I guess what I was getting ready to is, I was getting ready to ask, do you have specific questions that about this petition? And then, because later on down the line, he'll have a chance to give a rebuttal, and then we'll ask the questions that you're asking.
all right. I guess I was surprised to hear that it's 2 car doors wide, and it will be a big structure. So is that the plan, to have a big door to accommodate his beautiful mobile home, and also one to accommodate a truck as well on the side? It'll be a very large pole barn. But I'm not against that, because they really do. I just am surprised at the size.
Okay, so your main question is what is it going to house, and what is the reason for 2 garage doors, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I also asked if he was going to tear down the back shed.
Oh, that's right.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Time to go.
All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in favor against this petition, or for this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none, is there any on Zoom?
No.
Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? No. Seeing none. Public portion is now closed. Sir, if you would like to answer these couple questions that they have, I actually have one question that came up when we were talking. We got 5 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes. I was holding my pen.
The second door, 10-foot by 10-foot door, would be for my personal truck.
Bless you.
If you scroll back to the pictures of the house in the front, you'll notice that there's a Chevy truck sits outside the garage. Once my wife pulls into the garage and parks, there's no way I can get my truck in and out or out. So my truck would sit inside that pole building in that 10-foot door. That's what that would be used for, plus also gaining access in and out. But the larger door would be only for the motorhome.
Does that truck pull the motorhome or the?
Does that truck be pulled by the
Does your
motorhome?
truck pull that, I'll call it a motorhome or a trailer or whatever?
The motorhome is a Class A motorhome. It's a 38-foot diesel pusher
Oh, it has its
motorhome.
own, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yep, it pushes itself along down the highway.
And then the other question was about the shed.
If you scroll back to the diagram, you can see the shed in the backyard there. The shed is 16 by 18. We left it there because the county counts it as 288 square feet of space that we could use for auxiliary buildings. And our thought was not to tear it down because it hasn't been there that long. It's a very nice shed. We could leave all of our lawn care equipment in it, everything else in that building. We don't plan on tearing it down, but if we did, we would look to add to the back side of the building approximately another 8 feet, which would take up the storage that we lost for that building, which would still be in our 1.5 footprint of our home.
Okay.
So basically with the new construction, the pole barn, leaving the shed as is, everything that you have would be under roof, so to speak.
Correct. Yes, and it would
Thank
be
you.
under, it would be under the 1.5 variance.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
You guys got any questions? I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion, Bob Hawley, that we approve the request for the property at 20363 Ozone Boulevard.
Second, Lance Roush.
Motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Veldman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Thanks, sir. Number 3.
Location, 25800 Kern Road. Owner, Gary and Evelyn Weldy. Requested action, 3 variances. Number 1, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a side east yard setback of 8 foot where a minimum of 30 feet is required. Variance 2, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a side west yard setback of 16 feet where a minimum of 30 feet is required. And variance number 3, from section 154.092 sub D to allow a rear south yard setback of 12 feet where a minimum of 30 feet is required for a new pole barn. Zoning, A agricultural district. County district.
This is Kylie Abrams again, Area Plan Commission staff. Staff is recommending approval of the variances. The subject property is split zoned, half R single family district and half A agricultural district, as you can see on this zoning map. The petitioner is proposing to construct a 40-foot by 64-foot accessory pole barn in the southwestern area of the property that's zoned A agricultural. As you can see here, this is showing where the proposed pole barn would be located towards the rear of the property. Looking east, looking west. This is a photo of the neighbor across from Kern Road to the north of the property, demonstrating that while these are 2 separate accessory structures here, accessory structures totaling a large amount of square footage is not uncommon for this rural area. This is the provided site plan from the petitioner. On to the criteria. Number one, the approval would not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval would not be injurious in this case. The requested setbacks are consistent with what is required for the R single-family district where most of the main dwelling is located. Number two, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Approval of the variances would not affect adjacent properties in an adverse manner. The project will conform to the current use of the petitioner's property and all of the surrounding properties, and a 12-foot rear setback should be sufficient to prevent any adverse impact from the small farm immediately to the south of this parcel. Number three, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. The strict application of the terms would severely limit any buildable area for the accessory structures on the property. As you can see, there is limited space in the residentially zoned area, and the width of the agriculturally zoned area is only 88 feet. Approval of the requested setbacks would be consistent with what would be required normally if the entire property was zoned R single family. And I'll take any questions.
Okay. Will somebody refresh my memory? Is there no height restriction in ag?
No.
It's the same pole building as the previous one, but there's another request for that, so.
Mm-hmm.
That's just getting told with Roger. Any questions?
I think so. I'm trying to figure out how to say it, because I don't sound stupid. Okay, so would it be more advantageous if we request the agriculture, basically get rid of the split zoning to be rezoned to residential to then kind of avoid the whole variance request?
This is a line that really differentiates ag zoning from residential zoning, and it's always challenging to say, where do you go? Because if we stop there, well, why don't we just pick up the other parcels immediately west, because they're smaller? And
Which I
it
thought of the
kind
same
of
thing, yeah.
can be a slippery slope. And we think that this is the better route to go, requesting the variances rather than rezone the entirety of the property. It's a very unique situation. It's split zone down the middle. And we were joking before in reviewing, this is why you all exist, to grant variances in special circumstances like this.
Okay.
I kind of said the same thing. Any more questions? All right. What? What?
Not for staff, but I got several for the owner.
Is the petitioner present? Please name and address, and you got 10 minutes.
And the petitioner did bring a handout for you all that I'll go ahead and pass out.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Alex Bowman. I'm an attorney with a law firm of Krieg DeVault, 4101 Edison Lakes Parkway, Suite 100, Mishawaka, Indiana, 46545. I represent Evelyn Weldy and her deceased husband, Gary Weldy, who's listed as an owner of the property. Succinctly, I don't have much more to offer than what the staff has already presented to the board. This particular property is certainly unique, given the width of the property on the southern half of the agricultural zone. That makes the construction of any accessory building particularly difficult, given the agricultural setback requirement. What I've presented here, and I appreciate the staff handing it out, is a photo showing the site of the pole barn looking towards the road to give an indication as to the character of that particular parcel of land. I've also identified on the site plan and the other GIS photo there the names of the adjacent property owners. The parcel, the large parcel there to the southeast is owned by Camp Millhouse. There's a letter of support from the executive director of Camp Millhouse in the packet that's been provided. The owner of the small farm parcel and the adjacent parcel to the immediate west have also provided written letters in support of this variance request. With that, I'm happy to take any questions and certainly appreciate the board's consideration and ask that the petition be granted.
Okay.
Will the rented or purchased shipping container be removed for this to be placed in its spot, or what?
That's the idea. That's the idea. That's, I mean, we'll call it a semi-permanent structure there, but that's makeshift for this, the type of storage that's contemplated in this pole barn.
And then it appears the other outbuilding is a livable space. Is that someone living out there?
No, there is no one living in that space. Candidly, I don't know if I have a satisfactory answer as to the nature of what that is, other than to say it's an outbuilding, and I don't believe there's anybody residing in it.
It's like a nice tiny house.
He's looking for a place to rent.
Not yet, my wife still likes me.
Kylie, during your site inspection, did you see anything that would indicate
Give it time.
that someone was living?
No,
Okay.
there was no one back there, and there's only the one car.
I like some money.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions? No? All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the house that would like to speak for this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none. Any on Zoom? Seeing none. Public portion is now closed. Anybody got any questions?
And just for the record, there were 3 letters of support in that little packet you got from the petitioner. The third one did not have an address on it, but it was identified by parcel number on the map that's on like the 3rd page. I would consider that to be as identifiable as an address, so I think you can accept all 3.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. The neighbor Brown, there's no reference other than this says the neighbor, so.
If you look at, I think it's page 3, or if you count the first page, the one that has like the map of the parcels. It identifies where each of those letters were from, and there's a parcel number on that parcel.
Okay, yeah, I see.
That's as good as an address as far as, I think, legally speaking, so I think you can accept that one.
Thank you.
It's unusual, but it should work.
Okay.
I'm guessing that building gets in the way. Meaning.
What building?
Well, the back setback is only 12 feet. Meaning, why couldn't they move it forward 18 feet? And I'm guessing that building gets in the way.
Other building, yeah.
The other building gets in the way. Because the side to side is one thing. The back's
Yeah.
another thing.
That shed?
Yeah. And the reason they don't center is because you probably got a door on the east end or west end, whatever direction it is. That's why they do 16 and 8. I get it.
I'll take a motion.
Oh, did we close the public portion already? Sorry.
Did.
Make a motion to accept the variances as requested for petition number 325-800 Kern Road. This is Joe Velleman.
Donnie Ritzmile, second.
Motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts. Variances. Thank you.
That's their 37 feet.
Number 4.
Location 10545 Vistula Road. Owner William and Lisa Whiteman. Requested actions. Variance number 1 from section 154.107 sub C1 to allow a front east setback of 16 feet where a minimum of 25 feet is required. Variance number 2 from section 154.107 sub C3 to allow a rear west setback of 10 feet where a minimum of 10 feet is required for a home addition. Zoning R Single Family District, County.
This is Kylie Abrams again, Area Plan Commission staff. Staff recommends approval of the variances. The petitioner is seeking to construct additional living space and an attached garage onto the existing home on the property. The uniqueness of this riverfront lot and the curvature of Vistula Road into of Eastview into Vistula Road leaves little buildable area for expansion. This is the view of the home from the corner of Eastview and Vistula. This is the existing garage and shed that would both remain. This is looking north onto the curve, onto Vistula, and looking south on Eastview. These are just some photos to show that the immediate neighbors of the petitioner that demonstrate that large home additions and homes that don't meet setbacks or development standards for this district are very common in this area along the river. This is the provided site plan from the petitioner. As you can see, the garage will be butting out towards the corner of Eastview and Vistula. Under the criteria, number 1, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval of these requests and variances would not be injurious. The additional parking space would only improve the welfare of the petitioner and the community. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The area adjacent to the property would likely be unaffected by the granting of this variance. As seen in the presented photos, homes of this proposed size on smaller lots are varying in character with this riverfront area. And number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Strict application of the ordinance would in this case result in practical difficulties. The petitioner is currently extremely limited in the use of the property for expansion or improvements that would otherwise not be difficult for a similarly sized lot located elsewhere due to the uniqueness of the lot. And I'll take any questions.
Anybody got any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner present? Name and address in 10 minutes, please.
Hi, I'm William Whiteman. This is my wife, Lisa Whiteman. We're at currently
10545 Vistula Road. We just hope to be able to add on to our home. It's very tiny. It's like a cottage, really. We still have a teenage son living with us, and it's just super cramped. So.
We've been looking for years now for the perfect river home for us, and this one had everything except a little bit of size to offer. We like what's there. We just want to add to it.
It's a beautiful spot.
Yep, it has
Thank you.
a beautiful river view.
The view is what really got us. We just wanted that river view so much.
We had like 5 minutes to make a decision when we looked at it in February when it was covered with snow. So we're happy with our decision. We just would hope that we have, it's very confusing what to call the front, the rear. When I called the zoning board, they were
Baffled too.
Baffled as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the side that they're calling rear really looks like the side adjacent to the house with the red roof there anyway. So we're just trying to build something that looks like it makes sense and will fit in.
Can you clarify that a little bit for me? So this sheet that I have here that shows addition of the garage, is that gonna be adding then on that footage onto both the east and south side? So it's basically growing to the southeast towards Eastview?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes. We don't have any letters from our neighbors, but we have spoken to them all, and they are all in favor of it, as far as we know,
Yep.
so.
They've been very supportive.
Well, if they weren't in favor of it, they could have been here today.
Correct.
Well,
True.
Is this on a city sewer system?
it is not
City water.
city water.
Oh, yeah, I see septic tank. Where's your field at?
It has a newer dry well.
Probably gonna run down the hill.
Basically, everything along there is all dry wells.
Yeah.
It passed inspection
In
in
February.
February when we bought the house, and
I bet it did.
How close will the addition be encroaching into that septic tank? I mean, what's that, is that 10 feet, 20 feet, 25 feet from the new addition to where the septic is?
10 feet to the nearest point.
Can't get any closer than 10 foot.
Yeah. Yeah. The corner of the left
part of the building.
corner of the service, or the main door on the garage addition, I've kind of got that at about like 10 feet to the tank coming from the house. And then the dry wells are, I think there's a drawing. I think there was a drawing showing where those were.
Flip one more way, Cal. Oh, you don't have, it's in here, but it's not on
There
there.
is one.
Oh.
Old house.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how old this home is?
1959,
59 it was built?
yeah. There's a side yard, a good side, I don't, the area of the yard closest along the right there, we figured if we had to put in a new septic system eventually, there, and we did talk to a septic person, and he said there would be enough room left there in order to do that if need be.
It'd probably have to be a bed system.
A bed system, yeah.
So are these your prints that you drew, or did these come from a contractor, or?
We have a builder, yeah. Tom Evans, he's Evans Building,
Right.
yeah.
They're not final plans.
They're not final, we
He
just,
just, we knew a zoning change was gonna be needed, so he asked that we get that before going any farther with the plans, before we invest all that.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions? No? All right, thank you.
thank you.
Get reorganized here.
High enough for a basement, huh?
All right, we'll open it up to the public now. Is there anybody that would like to speak for or in favor of this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
No.
See none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Any on Zoom?
No.
Seeing none, the public portion is now closed. You guys got any final questions? Or I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, when it comes to water lots, I think they're unique in their own right, and if you live across the street from it, you don't have, unfortunately, you're not on the river, so you don't get to see it. So everyone maximizes the space they can on the lots they have available. I think it's a good opportunity to grow that house for someone into something that's more current and modern, and I make a motion to approve the variances as requested.
Bob Hawley, I approve that, or second that, excuse me.
You approve it?
Thanks, Bob. He approves it.
A motion and a second?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Velman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
And Mr. Tavernier?
Yes, based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning and Appeals grants your variances and will issue written findings of the facts. Thank you. 5.
Location 12500 Riley Road. Owner TL Land LLC. Variance 1 from Section 154.092 Sub A to allow an area of 2.19 acres where a minimum of 20 acres is required. Zoning A Agricultural District, County.
All right. Well, earlier in the meeting, when you all asked about the recommendation of whether to place property in an outlot, that's what we have here in this case. I'll go through it for you. This property is located on Riley Road, just east of Dogwood. The request is for a variance to allow a lot area of 2.19 acres approximately where 20 acres is required. Staff recommends approval of the variance on the condition that the balance of the existing parcel, which is approximately 55 acres, that be placed in an outlot during the minor subdivision process. Currently, the petitioner owns 75 acres of land, which is across 3 adjacent parcels with 980 feet of frontage on Dogwood and 2,600 feet of frontage on Riley Road. This allows for the division of 3 buildable lots, remember 20 acres for lot area. Approval would allow the 2.19 acres to be split off, leaving 73 acres. The remaining property would have sufficient acreage and frontage to be divided into 3 buildable lots. So by allowing the variance for the 2 acres, and then leaving the acreage without any condition for the outlot, creates that possibility for an additional lot beyond what would be allowed under the zoning ordinance. So staff is recommending that the remaining 55 acres be placed into an outlot that provides the potential of 3, that would prevent the additional creation of a buildable lot. This is the house proposed to be split off, the 2.19 acres along Riley Road. The site plan showing the home. And then looking at the state code criteria, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. If the variance is granted requiring the balance of the parcel to be placed in an outlot, sufficient acreage and frontage remains with the balance in neighboring parcels owned by the petitioner to allow future division of 3 buildable lots without the need for variances. Counting the 2.19 acre lot, this would result in the potential for an additional lot, which is why staff's recommending the condition. The use and value of the area adjacent could be affected in a substantially adverse manner if we don't require the outlot for the balance of the property. And strict application to the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties of the use of the property. It would prevent a subdivision which would allow the existing house to be split off separately from the 55 acres of cultivated farmland. Allowing this promotes the ongoing use and value of both properties by allowing them to be separately owned. Petitioner is present, and I am happy to answer any questions.
With the new comprehensive plan, what's it gonna do with outlots?
So that's a very loaded and vague question without a specific answer. I think, we need to look at areas within the county in specific geographic, I think we will need to look at specific geographic areas within the county. Where do we have ag land that really has not been hacked up and where the land is actively being tilled? This would be such an area, right? We have a lot of large lot parcels where they have not been compromised as other areas in the county. I think we'll need to look at what the standard is, if the same standard should apply across the board, if we need different standards for different areas of the county. I encourage you to sign up for farmland preservation and be on that group with us, Sydney.
I think you just got volunchosen. I think you already did.
It's better than voluntold.
I would love to have your perspective.
Any more questions? No? All right, Terry?
Terry Lang from Lang Feeney, the Whiteman office. Address is 715 South Michigan Street here in South Bend to represent the petitioner. Basically, Tim Lady's doing a little estate planning here with this property. cutting out his house from the agricultural tillable portion of it, going to be placing it into a trust, and there is no objection to the balance of the property at this point being made into an outlot. It's happening in a lot of cases where people are planning, cut out the house, the tillable portion then becomes a cash income then in the future for lease farming when he decides to quit having it farmed. He can have it continue to be farmed as a lease farm. So the petition before you is the area that you saw on the aerial map, which is shown in basically squaring off the green area on the grassy area right there. So that's the petition before you is for that parcel size.
Okay, so they don't have an issue with
No.
surveying it and keeping it an outlot and being done with it?
Not at all.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions?
No, sir.
No? All right, thanks, sir.
I do want to make a statement, though. You know, that the property we didn't make an outlot, and the property we did is only about 2 miles as crow flies.
Okay.
You know, the Shively Beach from Riley and Dogwood.
Yeah, but two significantly different acreage
Yeah,
capabilities.
it's two different scenarios.
Well,
But
this-
let's keep focused on this one. All right, thanks, Terry. Is there, I guess let's open this up to the public. Is there anybody that would like to speak in favor of this petition? Please step forward. I see none. Any on Zoom?
No.
I see none. Is there anybody that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. See none. Is there any on Zoom? Seeing none. Public portion is now closed. Anybody else got any questions? No? I'll take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, based off of the intent of the petitioner and Mr. Lang to keep as much tillable property into the agricultural district as possible, I would make a motion to approve the variance on the condition that the balance of existing parcel 011-1016-0189 be placed as an outlot. Is that the correct way to do it?
Bob Hawley, I will be happy to second that.
Motion and a second. Shelley?
Mr. Moffett?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzma?
Yes.
Mr. Roush?
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Vellman?
Yes.
Mr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Tavernier?
Yes. Based on the testimony presented here today, the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, after careful consideration, grants your variance and will issue written findings of the facts.
Granted the variance with a
Granted
condition.
variances with conditions and will issue written findings of the facts. Do I get a gold star, like Joe?
I don't have one, but
Oh.
if I did, you'd both get one.
It's great that Joe can make motions now.
Thank
He
you.
does them so well.
That's what I'm getting at.
Thanks, Terry. All right, number 6.
Location 10386 McKinley Highway. Owner, Wood Rental Properties, LLC. Requested action. Following variances. Number 1, from section 154.182 sub C 1 to allow a front north yard setback of 34 feet where a minimum of 40 feet is required. Variance number 2, from section 154.182 sub C 3 to allow a side west yard setback of 4 foot where a minimum of 20 feet is required. Variance number 3, from section 154.182 sub C 3 to allow a side east yard setback of 11 feet where a minimum of 20 feet is required. Number 4, from section 154.182, sub C4, to allow a rear south yard setback of 16 feet where 20 feet is required. Number 5, from section 154.332, required front yard and side yard landscaping to the landscaping currently provided on site. And number 6, from section 154.333, required foundation landscaping to the landscaping currently provided on site. Zoning C Commercial District, County.
I noticed that a Mr. Craig Anthony on Zoom has turned his camera on and unmuted himself. If you're interested in being addressed in this, in the public hearing portion, you'll be able to speak then, but at this time, you're going to need to be muted and have your camera off, please.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
This is Kylie Abrams, Area Plan Commission staff again. So the subject property is a storage facility on the south side of McKinley, just east of Apple and Osceola. The property was previously subject to a final site plan in 2015. The property was then rezoned from C Commercial Site Plan Specific to C Commercial, not subject to a site plan, in January 2021. A petition for variances from the required front setback of 40 feet to 26 feet and from the required side setback abutting a residential district from 20 feet to 3 feet was heard by this board in June 2021. This board granted 35 feet, 40 feet is required for the front, and 14 where 20 feet is required for the sides. Here's the zoning map of the property. Although this is somewhat of a commercial mixed corridor along McKinley, the property is surrounded on all sides by our single-family residential. Following the June 2021 ABCA, an as-built survey was submitted showing that the front building was constructed at 29 feet where 35 feet was granted. To bring the property into compliance, the contractor cut off part of the front of the building, bringing the setback to 34.4 feet. As shown on the survey submitted with the application, the petitioner is now requesting a variance to legalize the 34.4 front north setback where 35 was previously approved. Staff's original recommendation for the side west setback was 8 feet to be consistent with the 2015 final site plan. However, the petitioner was willing to go up to 14 feet. The petitioner is now seeking to legalize the side west setback to 4 feet where 20 feet is required and the east side setback to 11 feet where 20 is required. This part of the survey is showing the southern part of the subject property. As shown, the rear setback, which was shown as 20 feet on the approved revised final site plan. You can see that the rear middle building was constructed at 16.9 feet, where 20 feet was originally required and approved. Additionally, to legalize the site, the property owner is seeking variances from required Type 2 full screening landscaping along the entire length of the lot abutting the residential districts, and foundational landscaping along the front of the building facing McKinley to no landscaping. In summary, the petitioner is seeking to legalize several non-conforming setbacks and landscaping deficiencies. This is the view of the site from McKinley, looking west and east. This is the view of the western neighbor's property and the view of the eastern neighbor's property. On to the state criteria. Staff is recommending approval of the front north setback variance to allow 34.5 feet where 40 feet is required, and the side east setback of 11 feet where 20 feet is required. And staff is recommending denial of the side west setback variance to allow 4 feet where 20 feet is required, the rear setback variance to allow 16 feet where 20 feet is required, and the variance from the required Type 2 full screening landscaping of the length of the lot line which abuts the residential district. And finally, the foundational landscaping provided near the front building facing McKinley Highway to the existing landscaping, which would include a partial privacy fence along the south lot line and a partial tree line along the west lot line. Number 1, the approval would not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Approval of the front and side east setbacks will not be injurious. Neighbors who attended previous hearings have stated that the main concern is the 4-foot setback. Approval of the rear and side west setbacks and landscaping variances would be injurious to the surrounding area. A 4.5-foot setback does not provide enough reasonable space between the lots, and the neighbors are concerned about runoff and traffic. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Approval of the front and side east setbacks will have little effect on the surrounding area. The buildings are very close to adhering development standards, and these buildings are not out of character for this McKinley corridor. Approval of the rear and side west setbacks and landscaping variances would affect the surrounding areas in a substantially adverse manner. A lack of proper setbacks for these areas and a lack of landscaping screening for such an intensive commercial use could be detrimental to future use and future resale value of the eastern, western, and southern adjacent properties. And finally, number 3, the strict application of the terms of this chapter would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. Approval of the requested front and side east setbacks would provide relief from the practical difficulty of the terms of the chapter. The angled nature of the lot resulted in the incorrectly angled building in the front. That's requesting the 34.5 setback rather than 34.5 rather than 35. Enforcement of the 20-foot setback would prevent the petitioner from adhering to the previously agreed-upon 8-foot side setback that was approved in 2015. And approval of these variances would correct ongoing issues. But there is little practical difficulty in meeting the required side, west, and rear setbacks and landscaping standards. I'll take any questions.
So let me just, staff is recommending approval for variance 1, denial for variance 2, approval for variance 3, denial for 4, 5, and 6.
That's correct.
And are we, I'm sorry? There's 6.
2 landscaping variances, 1 for perimeter and 1 for foundation.
Are we doing these individually?
Since there's so many, it would probably be too confusing to do it otherwise. So, yeah, I would say when you get to the motion part, do them separately.
You guys got any other questions?
Apparently I wasn't here in June of 2021, so I wasn't privy to the original petition on this. I'm a little confused. What was requested and granted was not done.
I'm sure the petitioner can provide a little more clarity, but that is what was requested and what was done. There being a discrepancy is something that's pervasive for the history of this property. So in 2015, we had a site plan submitted for the property showing a number of the buildings, not the new ones to the north, but the existing buildings at the rear. And even then, it was shown as 20 feet. Like as an example, the middle one at the rear was shown as at 20 feet, approved via a revised final site plan. Came to light in the survey that was submitted today, it's at 16.9. That is a past issue that they're seeking to legalize. In regards to the variances that were before the board last year, 35, I believe, I don't recall what was requested, but 35 is what was granted and 29 is what was built. It never came back to the board because in the communications with the building department and the site inspections before we would release the final C of O, we said you have to bring it into compliance with what was granted by the board. So the builder cut off a section of the building at the north. It was required to be cut to 35 feet based on what the board granted, but it's really 34.4. So they're seeking to legalize that. The side setback is requested, well, it's shown as 13 feet.
Right.
14 feet was granted.
That's correct.
And that was based on what the builder agreed to. Staff had recommended
8 feet.
8 feet. There was a concern from the neighbor, and the builder said, that's fine, I can build it to 14. Well, what was built is 13.1. And then in this application, they're seeking to legalize the side setbacks. They've requested 4 feet on the west and 11 feet on the east, whereas the site plan on file has 10 feet on both sides. And the 11 feet will be, or 10 feet on the west is what's shown on the site plan. 20 feet is what's required. So really, they're seeking to legalize all existing buildings on the property built last year and in all of, I mean, since it's been developed, which is why they're also going for the landscaping variances too.
So the ramifications of denying 2 would be?
The ramifications of what, Lance?
Denying variance number 2. The 4.5.
That's the west setback, Abby.
They have to bring it into compliance.
Like tear half the building down?
Yep.
Who polices this when they're building it?
In my conversations about the property and various APRA requests, Access to Public Records Act requests, it's my understanding, and Terry can provide additional insight on this, and I see folks on Zoom that are probably here for it, is that they're seeking to sell and they need to legalize the site in order for that to happen. Terry has his hand up.
I bet we're going to fill some gaps here, aren't we?
Oh, I can fill a lot of gaps.
All right, you guys got any more questions? No?
Let
All right.
Terry fill the gaps.
Terry, you got 10 minutes.
Terry Lang, I don't know if 10 minutes will handle it.
Yeah, go
I'll do
fast,
my
man.
best.
You got 10 minutes.
Terry Lang from Lang Feeney, the Whiteman office. Address is 715 South Michigan Street here in South Bend. As Abby had indicated in her rather lengthy explanation, when the very first site plan was done for the development of these units, they made the broad-based assumption that this property is 90 degrees. It was not 90 degrees on that site plan. The buildings were started construction, and then the next building was built off of the building that was up. And as it progressed down, that transition that's not 90 degrees became closer and closer as you work your way north on the property. If you go back to the site plan right there, the development worked its way to the north, coming off of those buildings each time the contractor built the next building using the first building for that. It would have been the ideal situation if they would have had the survey done to start with. Luckily, I wasn't the surveyor for that. Since then, there's been 3 surveyors out there, and each case, they probably should have followed up with the variance request for all of these things that had been constructed each time they went down the line. It's carried forward now. As Abby had indicated earlier in the year, the last building was constructed. The developer of the property, Wood Rentals, has put the property up for sale, and they have a buyer. An ALTA survey was done, which is the highest order survey for property. All of these deficiencies were noted on that ALTA survey, which means it will not pass the necessary ALTA requirements for being able to get commercial financing for the sale of the property. Wood Rentals is moved out of state now. They live down in Florida. They're looking to sell this and retire at that location. And I've been given this great job of trying to explain to you in less than 10 minutes what should have happened, 20 years ago when the first building went up. But the variances that are asking for will leave all the buildings exactly the way they are. The concern with regards to landscaping along the sides, as if you go back to the aerial map, you'll see that there are huge trees along the sidelines of the property that would be required to be trimmed back to be able to put in the necessary fencing and landscaping. So we're going to be cutting trees that are overhanging on both sides, so it's probably going to be doing more hindrance. You can see there and on the other side, as you get back farther, there are, the next one I think also shows right there, you can see all the trees down the line there on Mr. Anthony's property. So all of those trees would have to be cut, trimmed up to be able to do the necessary installation for this. Each of the variance requests are for existing structures that are there to utilize the setbacks for the buildings that are there and not have to take out landscaping to put in landscaping for that requirement. This will allow the Alta survey then to be approved with these variances request, and then they could close on the property, and basically you'll have a happy buyer and a happy seller with regards to that. And if you have any additional questions, I'll try to answer them the best I can. I'm the guy at the very end trying to, when each of these previous 3 surveyors, 2 of them are out of business now, and now we're just trying to make it something that a buyer can buy and a seller can, be happy that the deal's done. I mean, they tried to comply with cutting the building off. They shortened up the buildings when they were here previously for the one side also. They've been bending over backwards but the very key thing was, 20 years ago, they should have had that survey and the site plan should have been put together with regards to that survey. And then when they constructed the buildings, they probably should have had the first building laid out by a surveyor. I'd be happy to.
Abby, so on the landscaping side of things, can we opt into saying something like existing trees can exist, but there needs to be a row of arborvitaes to shield those areas that are obviously very detrimental to the neighbor there?
Terry, are the trees on the property, on the subject property, or are they on the neighbor's property?
Yes, they're both down the line. So to put in new trees that are, if you don't cut the trees, the stuff that you're planting is going to not get any sunlight.
Well,
Out in front, in the front portion of it, yeah, you could do it, but a majority of the back 2/3 of the property is.
No, I think he's just saying, go back to the picture that we were looking at.
But Abby asked, are the trees that are overhanging, are they on the petitioner's property, or are they on
That house.
Trees would not have been located on the Alta survey that was done. So I can't tell you whether every tree is on Mr. Wood's property, or if it's on Mr. Anthony's property, or the property owner to the south.
Okay, Terry, is there dimension on the Woods property to do type 2 screening along that fence and that building that's adjacent to the house?
There's barely enough room in that area right there, because that fence is, if you go back to the survey
Like
part.
on the line?
Is almost right on the line, yes. If you go up to the top right there, you can see that the top building up there and the fence location, the fence is located, about 8 feet, so there's about 3-4 feet away from that it could be planted there.
Or it could be inside the fence.
Inside the fence, yeah.
But it kind of defeats the purpose of screening if it's on the inside of the fence, but I guess if that is a requirement.
I don't mind the fence, I mind the building.
I mean, there is a pole building on the adjacent property to the west also that, doesn't have landscaping or anything like that with regards to it either, but.
Man, this is an awful, from staff's perspective, this is an awful situation, and I really am sympathetic, to all parties involved. But, I think you all, and Terry knows, that we can't, we can't recommend approval because, whoopsies, it's already there, right? So we have our position, and if we recommended approval for everything that accidentally got built over time, then that would totally erode our, reputation.
But at this point, that one building in the center was built, so many years ago, and now it came to light, 5 years later or 10 years later. You're going to make them cut off the back 5 foot of that rear building back there?
Yep, Terry, I was trying to age every building there based on historic aerials and building permits, and I do see the initial phase, I think, went in something like the late 90s.
Right, it's been up for over 20 years, yeah.
So I've got an argument for that, right? As a builder, okay, we get hit as a residential builder. We get hit with things that are extremely minimal, right? But we can't get our C of O because we don't have proper hand railing going down a deck or something like that, right? So as a commercial contractor, you're kind of held to a different standard, but kind of more of a higher standard, right? Because you're dealing with heavier equipment, you're using GPS, you're, like, there's, to me, it just seems like there's a consistent, and I know that you're the fourth surveyor, fifth surveyor, whatever it is, but it seems to me like there's a consistent, let's do it, and then let's ask for forgiveness instead of permission, right? Is what it kind of.
I don't know if that was the case.
I understand, but that's what it feels like.
But it's one of those, it appears that way here, and I think that survey at the very beginning back in 1990s would have been the solution because everybody would have known exactly where those property lines are. Here we are, moving, 30 years down the road now. How do you address a building that sets, 4 or 5 foot over the setback
So I
line?
was here for this last year.
Right, I was too, I had something else.
And I specifically asked, do you have a builder for this? Who's your builder? So on and so forth. And whoever it was that was talking, I don't remember who was
Yeah,
talking.
it was the
said-
contractor that did the representation for
Yeah,
it.
so he said, I got this, I do this all the time, we're not gonna have any problems. It's, if I remember correctly, and I'm pretty sure I remember this correctly, that, he said, nope, we're gonna do this, we're not gonna have any problems, and here clearly we have problems with the building that was just built, right?
Right, by that half foot up front there, yeah.
Well, it was more than a half foot.
Well, yeah, they
because-
cut off part of it, yes.
Yeah, and so it just seems like there's a whole lot of, we'll do what we want, and then if we get caught, we get caught. If not, then
Well,
we'll
and
ask
to
for
some extent,
forgiveness.
maybe that notification should go to the building department or the planning department now that approves the locations for buildings and things, that contractor has a history of not following the plan or doing what he says. Put a gold star by his name as, somebody that's not doing things the right way.
Well, fortunately, that's what we have Crystal for now in the building
Yes.
department, right?
But at this point, you as a homeowner or as a person hiring a contractor, you don't know whether that's the case or not. So you're kind of relying upon their reputation or what they've done in the past. And what we're looking at right now is, okay, we've got one of the biggest messes you ever seen, and we can't get financing for the sale of the property. We can't, it's a tough situation.
So here's one thing, sorry, Bob, give me one more, let me say one more thing. So here's one thing that I was told when I first started in the construction industry, right? Ignorance is not an excuse.
Oh, I know that.
So, to me, I feel like there are more things. I mean, we got 9 houses going right now, and every single one of them are staked out. They've been looked at, they've been approved, everything's been done. And it just seems to me like there should have been a little more policing.
Well, and that is what I was just kind of referring to. Maybe the contractor that's not doing it right needs to have, double secret probation, as they said in the movie Animal House, so that, hey, it's not that easy to come in the next time if you're not doing it right. I mean, at this point, we've got 4 contractors that build multiple buildings here, and each one of them has relied on the previous one without actually having that initial survey till it got down to the very last building being put up, and then they ended up screwing it up from there, having to cut off part of the building. So, I don't know what the answer is for that.
Abby, was there C of O for all these buildings?
Oh, man. Kylie and I went back through them, and we don't have all of those records
Okay.
here today.
Well-
I can't say, I could say that I found permits and C of Os for some of them. In order to verify all of them, I'd have to go back through the database.
Well, let's assume they did, okay? I mean, we have to assume that the building department did its job, and I'm with you, but I would argue that the building department not doing its job at the foundation stage should not, I have a hard time penalizing an owner.
The building department does not police foundations. That's what your surveyors are for. That's what your building department is gonna go out and they're going to inspect the footer depth. They're going to inspect, they're not gonna go out and, your building is staked. Your building inspectors are not gonna go out and pull.
Okay, so who polices this? It's not him.
No. Who does police?
It's them, then, if
The
it's not the building
The
department.
building department aren't, the inspectors aren't surveyors.
Yeah.
The surveyor is responsible for determining where that the building
Well,
is
the-
built
the-
in compliance.
Yeah, the conundrum here is that this could be going on in every single parcel in the county, and what we're effectively saying is, hope you don't get caught, and hope nothing's wrong. And that's the circular reasoning that I'm trying to get to the bottom of here.
Your building inspectors are inspectors. They're not gonna,
Okay, so.
most of them will go out, and if it looks too close, they'll pull a tape measure, but if it's within,
Okay, that building looks pretty close.
But isn't it the inspector's
lined up
job
with
to
the
verify that they followed the rules
I
and?
don't know, I don't work for the county.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I'm like, that would be as if to say every owner has to go out with a tape measure and verify that their stuff is lined up with whatever, or pay Terry $3,000 to do it, no offense.
But
But
that
we
would
don't
have
do
solved the
that.
problem.
Well,
From the
it
very
would have,
beginning.
yeah,
You know.
it should have been proactive, I get that.
Yes.
But that's the
And-
reasoning behind having a surveyor and having your lots staked out, right? Having your houses staked out. That's the whole reasoning behind hiring Terry or
But there
Adam
were
Marsh or
surveyors,
whatever.
were there not?
At the very last phase, there was. And it was done, I think, by
Deb Marbach, or,
Marbach Brady Weaver.
Yeah, Weaver.
Okay.
Now they're
Deborah
Sam.
Hughes.
Now they're Sam. And the site plan prior to that was put together by Progressive Engineering. I couldn't find anything that showed that there was a survey done other than the site plan. So the initial site plan took place. It was carried through the second site plan without, two steps where surveys should have been done. And it carried to the third step when the very first survey was done that showed, hey, this isn't correct. And now we've got the fourth survey being done that says, okay, everything is not in compliance. How do you penalize a builder that's, a homeowner, or in this case, the Woods Rentals, penalize them for they relied upon the contractor, and it's been carried through, to this point, 30 years. I don't want to hurt any neighbors. Mr. Woods owns the property to the east. Mr. Anthony is online right now. We can get his perspective also with regards to that once we get to the public hearing part. So maybe what we need to do is hear what the public has to say, and then we can try to address their concerns with regards to.
Rebuttal?
Yeah.
And I can keep that to 5 minutes.
I've got a question. We wouldn't be here today, am I right, by saying if the property wasn't for sale and the buyer was trying to get financing, that's the reason we're here today, because the lender won't lend the money because of these infractions?
Correct.
Is that a fair statement?
That is a very good assessment, Mr. Hawley.
Okay. So actually, Mr. Wood could continue to operate as he is for whoever long, because the reason he owns the property, but he wants to sell it.
Yeah, he is looking to retire.
And that's why we're
and
here.
Dangle his toes in the ocean, like I'm going to be doing in a year or two down the road.
And I'm going to go back 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and I know the gentleman, and at that time, he might have said, this is a lot line, this is a lot line, here's where I want to build my
The first
storage
building,
sheds.
yeah.
That might have been the way it happened
Right.
initially. I'm just throwing it on the table.
And that assumption is probably a very good assumption of what started at the very beginning with this, Mr. Hawley.
Right.
So let's go ahead and hear the public hearing, and we can see what the concerns need to be addressed then.
You got something?
Yes, thanks, DJ. Joe, in response to your question, or your comment rather, about landscaping in or outside the fence, we require the landscaping to be along the property line, but we don't specify that it has to be planted on inside or outside the fence. There is also a request for foundation landscaping, a variance from foundation landscaping for the building that just went in last year. So that, I think, argument is a little less solid when they're seeking a variance for a building that just was constructed. Landscaping from foundation.
Which one was that?
Kylie? Foundation landscaping from the northernmost building?
Yes.
Yeah, but the planning, I mean, if the fence is on the property line, it has to be on the inside, it can't be on the neighbor's property.
Right, but I'm not saying just because the fence is along the property line doesn't mean we have a requirement that it has to be on the outside of the fence.
I'm with you.
Yep, okay.
And Abby, this is an ongoing violation, correct?
Could she
So-
speak into the
so-
microphone? I can't hear.
Sorry, I was just confirming with Abby. Bob, this property has an open violation complaint against it, so we have been trying to bring it into compliance. He wouldn't be allowed to just keep operating as
that
is.
right?
We are working to bring it into compliance, and this is where we ended up.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up.
Could I ask what the complaint was so that I know what might be coming from the public here?
I would have to look, but I believe it's just about the setbacks, correct?
I'm not aware.
I'm not
if this-
sure.
I am not aware.
I would have to look.
All right. Good? Okay. You guys good? Everybody good? No more
Yeah.
questions? All right, let's
I wanna
move
hear
this.
more.
Oh,
let's move-
I'd have to look in file.
I'll open up the public portion. Is there anybody in-house that would like to speak for this petition? Please step forward. I have to ask. Seeing none, is there any on Zoom? Please raise your hand on Zoom. I don't know how to do this.
Raise hand function.
Raise hand function. Or messaging in the chat. Seeing none, is there anybody in-house that would like to speak against this petition? Please step forward. Seeing none, any on Zoom? Use the raise hand function or chat.
How do I do that?
Oh, there you go.
I don't know how to do that, Blake.
Name and address, please.
Is that me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Or you could turn your camera on too.
I like me, don't know how to do it.
Okay, is that good?
There you go.
Yes.
All right, name and address, please.
Craig Anthony at 10413 Caitlin Court, Osceola 46561. I'm also the property owner of 10412 McKinley Highway, Osceola 46561, which is the property on the west side there. I think I'm agreeing with the staff right now in recommending only 1 and 3, and I would vote against 2, 4, 5, and 6. I think it's been well discussed that this particular property owner, through his contractors, has consistently violated the ordinances and setbacks set up by you folks. Even as recently as the last one when he, and I was the one to kind of notify, I think, some people that he was building too close to McKinley Highway on that north building and he was going to cut it back. And now, we're still 1.5 feet too far to the road. So it just seems to me that, and I think you've thoroughly discussed this, that just because you're putting something out there as a particular setback and even granting a variance off the setbacks, that are already in place for commercial property within the county and residential area. The variance is given, and we still on the last two buildings, not the original building that was put in 90 years ago or back in the 90s by Mr. Nate when he owned the property. But these last buildings that are put in by Wood Rentals have consistently violated the variances to these setbacks. And I just think that by going through and approving all these, just because we're wanting to sell this, I think that legitimizing the violation of these previous variances is setting a precedent within the county that I don't think want to get set. Because again, it's the old adage, we'll build it and, forget asking permission and we'll just beg for forgiveness later on. So I think I'm agreeing with the staff right now. As far as the screening along that fence, all that screening along that fence are predominantly all arborvitaes. They were all on my property, which is residential property. I was not required to put them in. I put them in just for my own screening because there is no screening on the Woods rental property. And I'm not too surprised that this property was for sale because I know that we had seen a surveyor out there and that the surveyor had brought up the fact that besides everything being discussed today, that the southwest property corner of this property is actually inside his fence, which is putting that west side of the fence and the south side of the fence on my property, which again, I just learned that from a surveyor that was out there a couple weeks ago. So I'm with the staff. 1 and 3 I don't have a problem with, but I cannot see approving 2, 4, 5, and 6 and legitimizing the violation of previous set variances.
Thanks, sir.
I'll take questions from y'all if you want.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak against this petition on Zoom?
Can you hear? Hi, my name is Nicole Rynell. I live at the property south on McKinley 10335, Berrywood Lane, Osceola, Indiana 46561. Sure everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I also am in agreement with Craig Anthony. We've had issues with Mr. Woods and a separate issue with building stuff and clearing out property that wasn't his without getting approval, specifically on my property when he cleared trees all the way up to my fence line without my permission, and then proceeded to realize he was in the wrong and then tried to put up a privacy fence and put grass over residential property that he was trying to put in for his commercial property. So there's been a long-standing issue with this person doing stuff and hoping to ask for forgiveness later. So I am also in agreement with what you guys have been discussing, and I'm thankful that you guys have seen through some of the stuff that unfortunately has happened over time that has not been caught.
Okay.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody else on Zoom that would like to speak against this petition? Seeing none, the petition, or the public portion is now closed.
I have one question and rebuttal for Mr. Anthony. At this point, does he have any problem with regards to just the landscaping being in that front portion from the area that was visible on the aerial map right there? that's adjacent to his property just to the west. So that would be that north 50 feet or whatever that distance is from the property corner. I don't want to block the line of sight on McKinley when you pull out, but extend the landscaping up as far as allowed by ordinance along the westerly property line and provide the initial foundation landscaping. It would be nice to know what the complaint was for, so if it's something that we can work through, at this would be the ideal time. I don't want to come back and rehash all of this again. If the complaint was one of these items, it would be nice to know. We don't have any problem with regards to, providing, arborvitaes along that westerly property line, foundation landscaping, but I don't know, they've already had to cut off part of the building and foundation to require the back building back there to cut off something that was put in. Abby, do you know when that middle building was built?
I at one time went through the aerials trying to date all of them so I could match them up to the C of Os and permits, and I'd have to go back. I'm sorry, Terry.
To ask them to cut down, 5 foot off the back of the building that's been there for, 20 years. Yes, I've heard what the other property owner said, that he tore up brush and stuff like that, putting up the buildings. The survey would have been the ideal situation, as I indicated to start with, to know whether you're on your property or on somebody else's. And as I indicate to a lot of property owners when they call my office is, there's no tree more expensive than the one you cut down on somebody else's property. That would have been a tree that was, somebody's grandmother gave it to them when their child was born or something. But the fact is, a building that's been up 20 years or so, the one in the center, is that necessary for that? Yeah, we'll provide the necessary, screening along that westerly property line. Mr. Wood owns the property to the east, and we'll probably be getting rid of that shortly too. But at least this would comply with Mr. Anthony's concern about, having the landscaping and the necessary foundation screening. But I can't see tearing down a building that was put in, over 20 years ago.
Terry, which building are you referring to?
The one in the very center, in the back.
Okay. That building, this isn't an exactly accurate date, but I wrote down when they first showed up on our historical aerials, and that one is first shows up in 2002.
20 years ago. So I wasn't too far off on my assessment by looking at the building itself. So, I can't see, required to tear down a building that's been there 20 years at this point. We'll comply with the landscaping as necessary if that satisfies the Planning Commission staff and the adjacent property owners who seem to have the most concern. I believe the lady that had called is in this cul-de-sac right here, at that back corner back there. It's not immediately adjacent to the petition parcel, but it must have been something that Mr. Woods did on his parcel to the east, the residential zone piece that he did clearing on.
Terry, does the hard surface go all the way to the property line at the rear, or is there any grassy area that...
Just to the fence. You got the small retention areas in each of the two corners. The fence is right near the south property line, and the asphalt goes up to within a foot of that area.
So one of the requested variances to legalize the site is, from the type 2 landscaping. If that were to be denied, could you put it in? I mean, you'd have to.
Along the south property
Yeah.
line, we'd have to tear the fence out and asphalt, and all of that's been in for, I'm looking to satisfy the part up front that has been the most concern. I don't know if the screening along the south property line, you're going to be getting right up to the existing fence that's there.
The reason why I ask is that number 5 is from the required front side yard landscaping to landscaping provided on site.
So the front yard setback, the way that's worded, it's kind of the front yard. I'm assuming that is the area out by the building up front. Am I correct? And that's what I interpreted that as. So providing that landscaping along that west portion, the northern, if you want to say, third from the buildings forward out to McKinley, and the appropriate foundation landscaping. The rest of that is, I can't see them going and tearing out fences, and it's going to disturb the retention areas back there. You've got, landscaping that you're going to ask to put in the retention areas. I can't fathom, doing that kind of damage to something that's been there for 20 years. And as everybody, I think, on the board had indicated in the discussion here, we're not, I guess you're penalizing a property owner who relied upon a professional to do the job right. I don't know, especially 20 years ago, most likely, as in any case, they may not even be around anymore to have, recourse against them. Obviously, the one up front, the building up front, they did do what was necessary, what they thought was the exact amount, and fell a half a foot short on that front setback up there. So, I mean, they tried to do what was required on that front area up there.
Were you the surveyor? Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Terry, do you know Nate was the original owner of the property?
I don't know, Nate.
Did he start the storage sheds?
According to Mr. Anthony, yes. My history on the property is more recent.
Yours would be, say, from Wood on?
Mr. Wood, and I've also done work for Mr. Anthony also.
Yeah. Well then, okay, I'm trying to picture when they started, and then when did Wood get into the act, and where did that take place, where they just kind of went along with what was there already?
A check of the property card records in the auditor's office could tell you when that transition took place. But it's, like I say, it's not going to change what's there right now.
I'm kind of, agreeing with you regarding, what you don't want to do, or things that are 20 years old, you start tearing and changing, and it's going to be pretty costly. But it was done wrong, I agree.
So I got a question here, because there's a lot of questions that we've asked, there's a lot of questions that Terry's asked that we don't have answers to at this particular moment. Is there a way to bump this to next month and get said answers?
Mr. Chairman?
And one thing that I would recommend, and I'd look to Brandy for guidance, is that Terry could provide a site plan showing some of the landscaping that he's describing, so that way you're not making your motions on the fly, and we have an idea of what you would be able to propose.
I can show on the plan that was provided for that Alta survey. If I have to generate a whole new one, I won't be able to generate that for probably 2 months right now. I'm backed up that far in all the design departments right now. But if you want me to show on the site plan that was provided, the areas to be landscaped so that you'll be able to evaluate from that, yeah, I can do that.
I would, personally, I would like to see it actually done. This is what it's going to look like, this is what, I think we've had too many, this is our plan on this property, and I would like, I personally, and I guess I'm gonna wait for a motion to be made, but I would like to see the actual plan, this is what it's gonna look like, this is what we're gonna do.
I can overlay landscaping onto the plan that was provided to show what that would be. From that west property line, from that last tree there up to the right-of-way line on McKinley there, and along the foundation landscaping in that area. I don't see any need for putting anything at the rear of the property at this point and creating a major, if this drags too long, we're going to lose a buyer too, so I don't want to lose a buyer on a commercial piece of property.
I think we're all sympathetic to that, but given I was kind of on the same track as you, DJ.
You do have the ability to table it to the
That's-
next meeting to
was-
request more information.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we table this, all 6 or the entire,
Just the petition of wood rental properties.
yeah, the petition of the wood rental property on McKinley Highway until, what's the date?
September 14th.
September 14th meeting, pending more clarity with regard to the type 2 landscaping. And also, I would like to see more clarity with regard to trying to recreate the crime actually as it happened. Some dates, right?
I would second that, Bob Hawley.
Is that convoluted enough?
I mean, is there any other information any of you would like so that it can be on the floor so the petitioner knows what to bring?
So I guess my thing is are we needing or wanting type 2 landscaping around the entire property? Is that why you were asking for the rear, Abby?
Yeah, I want to look and see what they applied for. Well, I know what they applied for. What I was advocating for, in light of the rear setback not being met, having some landscaping back there. I think Terry understood where I was going with that and is saying.
Okay, now, it's clear now what you're saying. right now.
Sorry.
So let me do an evaluation back in the back and see, without getting major equipment out there and disturbing retention areas, can, a row of arborvitaes be placed along between the asphalt and the fence back there?
Because normally, Kylie, could you get to the zoning map for me? I mean, you all see variances all the time for type 2 landscaping. When we have abutting a residential use or district, commercial or industrial zones, we have type 2. So here we have a situation where we don't have landscaping and we have a reduced setback, so it's like a double whammy, right? Double
Well,
whammy.
and I think, I would argue that there's culpability here too. I personally did not go out to this one. And I clearly need to go out there and camp out for a minute.
I was
So,
just going to
There's a
suggest,
motion.
I've driven by that property 100 times. I know exactly where it's at, but I'm going to drive out and I'm going to look at it and study it so I know better what I'm talking about.
I was there the first time and I was there the second time, and
Right?
so. Okay, we had a motion to table with some extra clarification on multiple. Do I need to reiterate what we wanted?
I think that'd be a good idea. It does not have to be a roll call vote, though.
Yeah, it's just an all in favor, right? So we need, we're tabling because we need clarity on type 2 landscaping, placement of type 2 landscaping, the building permit dates or clarification of when said buildings were built or who the builder was, or C of Os. And, am I missing something else? I had
You guys?
5, and I'm missing 1.
You had also mentioned clarity on the property transfer history and the ongoing violation.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the other violation is, so if that needs to be addressed next month, we can do that also.
Yes, that's important.
Anybody else have anything?
Did you get Terry evaluating if there's possibility for landscaping in the rear?
Along that south property line, yes.
Okay.
And I would like to see an actual map of what this is going to look like.
Okay.
So, anybody else have anything? Okay, so there was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
We are tabled till next month. Thank you.
Can I make a motion on the finding of the facts?
There was a change to the findings of the facts. Was this the new one, Shelley?
There was changing to the minutes.
Or to the minutes? I'm sorry. Okay.
I have the revised minutes for you.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the finding of the facts for the Wednesday, July 13th, 2002 2 meeting.
Second, Lance Roush.
All right, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Minutes? Is there just one?
So Donnie is our quality control for the minutes.
Yeah, he is.
Thank you, Donnie.
Sorry.
But I'm not sorry.
Did you get a promotion?
So the two that voted against approval of the Little Flower petition last month were accidentally entered into FileMaker as the motion in the second. Donnie and Bob, I think you both were denial, or you voted against?
No, it was
DJ
me.
and I were in denial, but.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I voted, yeah.
So those, Shelley went back and listened to the minutes and corrected it, and, oh, and Brandy also has a revision to the minutes.
The lawyer that was representing the petitioner was Jim Masters, not Bob Masters. You had it right in most places, but it was wrong on page 14.
I'm sorry, one more time?
The lawyer representing the petitioner was James Masters, not Robert Masters. You had Robert on page 14. I imagine he might be, I don't know, he might be flattered he got mixed up with his son. I don't know.
Little Jimmy.
So Brandy, we'd be looking for a motion to approve as
amended.
As amended.
As amended.
Yep.
Yep. So I'm looking for a motion to approve as amended the minutes for July 13th, 2022.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended for, I think you said.
Second that motion.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Gabby?
Other business? So I know you all look worried that Sean's not here, like we're gonna lose Sean now, and he's on vacation. He offered to Zoom in from New Orleans, but we said that was probably not the best idea.
It's a good thing you didn't.
Right, it's a better looking version, so we're all right.
We do have Carl here with us, Carl Brown Grimm. He was the ghostwriter of one of our petitions this month, but before he took a stab at presenting to you all, just wanted to absorb it and soak it in. But don't worry, he's been assigned cases for next month, and will be presenting to you all in September.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? No? Just need one more motion.
I'll make a motion, Bob Hawley, that we adjourn.
Second, Lance Roush.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Good. Have a good rest of your week.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, actually, we can't talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
No, I was gonna talk about, that I want Kylie to do all the voiceovers on all of my voicemails.
I know, right? I
and
mean,
everything. She's perfect. You should be
Hanging
doing
on
radio,
paperwork
seriously.
for today's meeting. That's my dream job. Huh?
You've got an amazing
Hanging on
voice.
to your paperwork for today's meeting.
And I'm an old fat loud guy, I know.
No, I was gonna say, the handout that was provided to you, if you're not gonna
Hey,
keep it,
glad
could
you
I
got to
have
see
a
me.
copy of that? Because I need to scan it into the,
Yeah, you see a lot more people.
So what do you think? Hey,
Go on.
do you know who we would talk to about?
That's what they do in Range County, to keep a lot of driveways and
scan
mailboxes
that into
down.
the official record now. Thank you.
Who would pee, leave it there, or not. Do you understand what they're doing?
Yeah.
They make a general driveway for everybody. I kind of disagree with
Nice to meet you.
75 feet. I hate that cut off. No, 75 feet.
She's on the 14th floor, or you could go see Rachel, her planner. She's a good resource downstairs. I know, we see her frequently. It's funny, because like, a lot of times we get up and frequent out of paddle, we can't figure something out. Sometimes I'll call Larry, and Larry will be like, just call him. And like, he doesn't remember, he tells me to call him.
Well, yeah, I mean, on my phone, the phone numbers is the greatest thing. I mean, I don't know how all the functions work, but I know how to get to, like, I can go to
Oh, good.
VCA, and I just push a button.
Yep, all right. I'm so sorry for making late. It is a terrible situation. I hate it when you guys are in really tough situations. I mean, it's just there's no easy path. What were you?
Okay.
Against the tabling. You're like, let's take this dog
I was
out.
ready to go, yeah.
Let's take this dog out. and shoot it.
I knew where I was going with it. I look at this, never mind, we can't do about it. I got a thank you note from.
Kelly.
I know, right?
Oh, they
I'm
do
like,
that
I
way.
hate getting those. They make me.
I don't think, hey, how'd you get my home address?
I don't know, we didn't get to
I mean, it's not hard to find, but I'm like,
That's kind of road web.
I'm like, that's what's
So you're saying
weird.
I know, and I always say, listen, we don't recommend a
With the
road
right of way?
like you, or because we're like really.
Huh?
You know,
50 foot,
yeah.
all new subdivisions are all
Like the
50
zoning
foot.
ordinance and what we can do.
50 foot right of way.
But,
Really?
you know, but.
All kind of roads, 30,
That was weird.
32,
We both have.
or 33, excuse me.
You guys your home address?
The guy from the Morningside, the
Little Flower?
Little Flower, something, thank you.
You sent one to Sean and I.
Why don't I get something from Texas? Long-winded, thank you, would be possible, to want to put it with that.
Oh, yeah, so I talked to Mike after this. They were hell-bent on you. You.
Yeah, they thought that you were, they would not let the petition be heard on one of the ones that you were on. And I said, he said, Mike told me one time, well, you know, we're really kind of on notice of our guest books. And I was like,
One of 7.
yeah.
Oh, Mike, not Mark, or,
I was like, you should never count on it. Nobody's ever a solid, or like a yes.
Oh, no. So apparently I have facial.
you can tell how you're gonna vote very
And
well.
Mike tells me every time, he's like, I knew exactly which ones were going yes, and I knew exactly which ones were going no.
Yeah, you,
But you guys, like, that whole suit, that whole petition was lawsuit based. Like, I thought it, I was like, if we started trying to dictate the tenure within, that
So-
was outside of what we were charged with.
So we had 2 things that we had to do while we're here, right? We have to pay attention to the petition, we have to pay attention to what's going on in the county and follow the zoning ordinance, right? We also have to hear
Yeah.
the residents. Only reason why I voted no was because of the residents that surround it. Outside of that, I 100% can give 2 shits what anybody is gonna tell me that I can do with the house inside the building, so.
but again, residents, it's always nitty, not my backyard, I don't want it.
Well, one thing I question is, you heard him say that on that lot where the nursing home sat, that 3 or 4 of the houses, the septic would not pass. How many of those houses in that neighborhood, septic would not pass? They had to redo it.
That's the other thing.
They couldn't even put a mound in.
That's
They
why
had
I
to
kind of like
condemn
it.
the whole house.
That's why I like all the people coming all the way down from Douglas have the opportunity to tap into a new sewer system, maybe create a nicer home or do something different.
Well, they think they still have.
When she goes earlier on this school, and she's like, it passed
in February, I'm like, hell yeah, pass in February. There's no way to test that dry well in February.
Well, they're still gonna have, they're still gonna go on the health permit, and they're gonna no go with that, and then we just wasted their money on that. And we always advise them to contact the health department when we think there might be something.
Well, I was actually kind of pleased that their builder told them, you need to go do this stuff before we start working on it.
Yeah.
I kind of waited for stuff like that, yeah.
Well, I mean it, I'm not just sucking up, I think you guys, the way you consider these positions critically, your motions, your questions, everything is so good. It's really, and this is one of the best boards that I've worked, the best we do.
We all learn from you. You know nothing, you pull out more shit out of your anybody I know. Down there, I'm gonna give this to Miss Abby.
Hey!
Well, I knew that one, that Brandy's gonna wanna know that, all the stuff that I had to add.
That's a 70-acre field in the Range County.
Oh,
Almost
yeah.
80. And what you're doing to it. For the Amish community. You understand? I mean, this is kind of one of those Amish, now they could have done it different. They could have made it a 10, another 10, and then, 15 down, they could have busted it up. But there's a reason they did it that way, and I have no idea what the reasoning is. But that was a 75-foot easement for 4 of the parcels. But, like I was telling DJ, I said, 33 foot's a county road with the right-of-ways. Why do you need 75? You're not gonna take big agricultural equipment down there. You know what I'm saying? Because there ain't nothing big down there. And that's why I wanted to show him, that there is methods, and this is a kind of a good, bad example, meaning it's a big field to start with. Not huge, but it's a decent-sized field to start with, because it's what, an eighth of a section? This is 80, what would that be, eighth of a section? Yeah, it's an eighth of a section, basically. Where if you had 40, kind of like today, I was like, I know that neighborhood down there because I was raised in that neighborhood down there. And I'm sitting there going, if you wanted to make an outlet, that 40 deserved to be an outlet before the other one did, just because of the location of population over the lady one, the 70, 78 one. But I
You
mean,
guys could have done that. You could have put that condition on, we recommended it, didn't recommend it, that's.
right. But I look at it, to a certain degree, they're not wasting ground. In either case. They weren't wasting ground. And that's kind of what I'm saying here is, in the Amish country, they're gonna want the 10-acre and the 5-acre and the 20-acre patches, depending on what they're doing and what will go in here. You know what will end up in here, most likely? A family. A whole family.
Yeah.
Meaning mom and
Amish
dad.
family or just a?
No. Like, here's
Yeah,
here's
because
mom and dad.
Everybody wants their 3 to 5 acres of, I want to live out in the county with some land, so I'm not by my neighbors, but not too much so I don't have to maintain it.
Right, and that's where, to me, it ought to be down to the acre to acre half level, and a smaller right-of-way, don't get me wrong. Like I say, a road width is 33 feet.
I mean, this is hard, there are no easy answers.
No,
Because
that's
you-
right.
You say, what I hear you say over the last couple of years is, well, you're basically forcing people to buy more acres than what they otherwise would, or why don't you just let them have their little 1-acre plots? Well, okay, if we do that, but then we create the opportunity for a bunch of additional acres, like buildable lots, right? If we just
Right.
keep the minimum, or keep the minimum acreage down. That's what I'm saying is, I think we're gonna have to look at areas where we allow smaller lot areas within the county, but then we hold tight on other areas, like where we continue to require a higher acreage.
Well, that's good and bad. I understand it's good, there's good points and bad points, but then how do you determine if you have a small acreage in a big acreage area? You're discriminating against that small acreage in that area. And that's where I say, you gotta watch because you can't say, okay, here you can and there you can't. And due to just the acreage size, you know, like field size or something of that nature,
Yeah,
you can't just
absolutely.
randomly say that because now you're stepping on property rights.
Well, and like, so, what always is said to me is Madison Township
Right.
still is ag. We should throw all of our weight behind Madison
Well,
Township.
but there's, you know how many small parcels there are in Madison Township?
Oh, they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah, I mean, what's a big parcel? Like I told you before, a 20 is a small parcel by rights. So where do you draw the line on big to small?
I wonder if there's ever a requirement to farm land if you're in a ag zone, like that you have to have so much acres. You have to farm so much acres. I don't know. I have
No. No, there's no requirement of how many acres. So, you know, I mean, you could farm a half an acre as a truck patch. You know what a truck patch is, so, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, I know people that's, you know, what you can do. You can put, truthfully, you could put agriculture on residential land. You know, but you can't put residential on agriculture. Because I got some of the residential that's agriculture. In other words, the piece that is residential, but I won't sell it. And everybody goes, why won't you sell it? I said, because of the fact is my grain goes through it. And I said, I'm not going to sacrifice my grain so somebody can build a house.
Sydney, it is so hard. There's no easy answer.
There is no easy answer. I mean, I'm not going to disagree. I mean, it's kind of like saying, like I told you before, I'm the best farm ground in the area. Is not what it was 30 years ago. Because agriculture has changed that much that the best farm ground used to be known as the crap ground that nobody wanted. And now it's the best ground that everybody wants. And that's like where St. Joe Farm sets.
Well, it's funny, you know, we got a rezoning petition for St. Farms.
To what?
A single family, to do a subdivision. And it was like a monster rezoning. It got
Oh,
tabled,
for the whole St. Joe Farm.
it got tabled twice. And then they ultimately withdrew it because they won't be able to do the project on their own septic. But Mishawaka doesn't have any plans to extend utilities. So they're on their engineering now. I don't know if they'll refile, but the Liners contacted me right away.
Oh, Ed and them boys did?
Jeff
Ed
and
Jeff,
Joe.
yeah. Ed.
Because,
Well, you know why Jeff and Joe?
why?
Because they're the kids. And Ed's the dad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I haven't met Ed, I've only met Jeff and Joe.
Oh, okay, because Ed's older than me, he's in his. I'm sitting there going, who you meet with? You know, when you said the line, you're, what do you know with that? But, you know.
Well, I mean, so the development pressure there is so great. I mean, you go to the builders,
You know, I get it, and the worst part about it is, as a county, do you want to keep it centralized, or do you want it in different areas throughout town? Because really, you get down, you say Madison Township, but then let's talk about south of the bypass, north of Kern, in Penn Township. You know, or let's go all the way down through Penn Township to Lake. And, is Penn Township different than Madison Township? It is, huh? You wouldn't tell it from my backyard, because I'm right on the line. I own within a tenth of a mile of Penn Township.
all right,
So you can't tell from my backyard.
if you could wave a magic wand and do,
Well, if I could wave a magic wand, I would just say, if you could come up with a good plan to utilize the farm, any farm you pick, anywhere you pick, to a good use of the land. Understand where I'm going with this? A good use, kind of like that was there. That'll end up being, and there's nothing that says Did that 20-acre piece on there, or that 19-acre, I think it was 19 and a 20 on that, that doesn't say they can't survey it off and divide it off and give them the rights to use it, make it 2 lots. There's no rule that says they can't do that. And that's what I'm saying is if the Amish were down there in Lake territory that we just separated one house on. And the Amish are down there in, it's Seacorn deal. We did the other property for, the one at Beach in Shively. It's Seacorn deal. You understand what I'm saying? It's, the Amish are right there. I don't know if you've been down there.
Yeah.
I mean, they're right there. I mean, if he take that farm, that 40, and make it 4 10s, and they could build a homestead on it, or if they could make it, just say 8 5s, you know that place would sell for a fortune, because that's what they want, enough for their horse, their buggy, and they don't mind buying the winter hay, but they don't want to buy pasture for their horse all spring and summer and everything, and winter hay, and have no place to go with the horse waste.
Yeah.
And that sort of
Will
thing.
you please participate in farmland preservation?
Well, I can. I was gonna ask you about getting on the